Hello and welcome to the final night of our Sonic and Iconic Virtual Art Gallery. I'm Joe Kleon.
And I'm Anastasia
And we're really
Pantsios.
glad to have you here. We're really excited about tonight. This is a set of photos we're going to call Cleveland Connected. Anybody that's connected with Cleveland for any reason, we will give you some photos. A big set of photos that we have for you. Some great artists from around this area that you'll definitely be familiar with. People like The Adults, American Dog from Columbus, played Cleveland a ton of times. American Noise, of course, a lot of Cleveland metal with Breaker and Black Death. Breathless, Carlos Jones, Cellbound. Pretty much all kinds of Cleveland artists. Devo, Destructor. If they're from Cleveland and you remember them, First Light, Generators, Glass Harp, James Gang, Joe Walsh, on and on and on. Lots and lots of Cleveland connected photos. Every photo we have is for sale. Go to the Sonic and Iconic Facebook page. Look on the description of this video. You can also go to joecleon.com. You can get links to every one of our galleries from the week. Over 1,100 photos. We started off with Classic Superstars on Monday. We did Country on Tuesday. All Michael Stanley Wednesday. On Thursday, we did Metal. Friday was Pop, Alternative, and Rap. And then we continued on yesterday with rock, a plethora of rock artists. And tonight it's Cleveland Connected. Every photo for sale, printed and shipped by NEO Pro Imaging, our good friends, best printers in Cleveland. And then we really hope that you'll buy some photos as holiday gifts, do the shopping from the safety of your own home, and just give a really unique gift. You can go to the mall and get a calendar and they'll forget about it in a year. But if you get them a concert photo of their favorite band, a concert maybe that they went to, people won't forget that. Every time they see it on their wall, they'll think about what a cool gift it was. Your calendar's just going to go in the trash. The calendar will go in the trash.
Well, a lot of people hang on to their calendars if the pictures are nice. I have a whole stack of cat calendars.
So anyway, at the end of the photos tonight, we're going to get into part 2 of the Michael Stanley Oral History. It was recorded last year at our Reigning Rock Gallery at 78th Street Studios. Again, hosted by David Spiro. We did part 1 on Wednesday. This is part 2. And unlike part 1, which went album by album through all the MSB albums, this one just kind of jumps around in his career. It's a little more informal. Some great stories, really, really great stories. So we will get into that directly after we go through the photos. So let's get us off the screen, get some great Cleveland artists back on the screen, and we'll start the photos.
That sounds great.
All right, here we go through our set of Cleveland connected photos. We start off with the shot of yours, Anastasia?
Yeah, The Adults were a very well-known alternative band, an indie band in the 80s. And they played a lot at the Fantasy nightclub, where I think this was taken backstage. Marianne Shibley on the right still plays out with bands.
Oh, wow.
Today she plays saxophone.
This is an interesting photo that I took of the after the gig parties that they used to have at the Sly Fox. Pretty much everyone in this photo is a Cleveland musician. So it's just a big Cleveland musician photo. If you happen to be there and want to grab this photo, it is available for sale. Just check the description of the video. Here's a band from Columbus that played Cleveland a lot, and a band that I did a lot of work with, American Dog. It's a really great, fun, hard rockin' original metal band from Columbus, always up here in Cleveland. That's Michael Hannon. Did an album, I think, for Geffen back in the 80s under the name Salty Dog. Remember them?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't.
There's a promo shot I did back down in Columbus.
Yeah, okay.
Some early 2000 shots.
I have no recollection of them at all.
Oh, I love them. Great, great band.
Craig Balser with American Noise, who were a band that were very heavily pushed by WMMS. They had an album out on a national label. Never broke out really big, but in the late 70s, there were a lot of people that had very, very high hopes for this band. And there's a group shot of the band.
And we move on to Black Death.
I love Black Death.
That was some promo photos we did for the vinyl release of one of their records.
You can't take a bad photo of them because Sicky sees a camera and he's like on.
Well, that was downtown, right at Public Square at the War Museum, 2013, and we had a cop slowly follow us along everywhere we went downtown to shoot. Mm-hmm. I think he was a little afraid of us, but a very, 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 very fun photo shoot with Sicky and Black Death.
Yeah,
that's some promo shots with Breaker after Jim Hamer got back in the band to do some shows back in 2012. That was just some old factory downtown, a stairwell that we found, and did some fisheye promo shots.
And there's Breaker, I think in the early 2000s, I want to say. I think it was earlier than that. I don't know exactly when. And that was in the 80s. That was Breaker and Destructor together.
Yeah, that's a great shot.
Probably 86, 87. Wait,
Very,
it
very
had to be
cool shot.
86 because I think Dave Holocaust is in there. Is he? I'm trying to look for him now. So it would have been before he died. But I did photos for all the Auburn bands, and I did a bunch of photos for the Auburn compilation. That was the last album that they did, and that was, I think, 87.
That's a very cool
So
picture.
we had all the bands in my studio.
Back to Breathless.
That was Jonah Coslin there on the left, and that also was done in my studio at home
Wow, it's a very nice shot.
in the early 80s, I think.
Carlos Jones, a shot I took, I think, when Packy Malley opened his place down on Waterloo.
Oh, yeah.
The opening night, that was 2015. Very cool to have him perform at our gallery. Was that last year or the year before?
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. That was a lot of fun.
And that was Carlos at the Beachland Ballroom.
That's a really nice shot there.
Yeah, I think that was also at the Beachland, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen him so many places, so many times.
Move on to Chrissy and Cellbound.
Cellbound,
I believe that was
they were great.
I believe that was the last Cellbound show at Peabody's. Very, very fun night. That's a shot from 2009, I think, and that might have been. Gosh, I really don't even remember where that was. Maybe the Jigsaw.
Yeah.
Don't remember.
The Jigsaw.
Yeah.
Charlie Wiener, who has been playing on the scene now for 50 years. He's an acoustic singer-songwriter and a comedian, and they cross over. He writes funny songs. And he also had a part in a famous Cleveland underground legend. His band, Charlie Wiener and the Fun Buns, were actually the first edition of Rocket from the Tombs,
Oh, wow.
which evolved into Per Ubu, which, of course, it became one of the most legendary and influential bands to ever come out of Cleveland. But they played in the early days when the band wasn't real serious. And when Dave Thomas, the lead singer, decided to get serious, they said, you're taking this. This isn't art. This is just fun.
Speaking of legendary,
Cheetah Chrome, the Dead Boys. Yeah, that was the Agora show. And he was a great showman. And he's managed to still be alive today, which I don't think many people would have predicted considering his lifestyle back then.
when I was on the air at John Carroll, just out of high school, starting college, he was arrested at the radio station.
Yes, I know. I know the whole story. He was drinking on the air, and they asked him to stop, and he wouldn't, and so they called the security guard, and he took a swing at the security guard. And he later on he complained that he was arrested because Cleveland hated him, which wasn't the whole story.
Moving on.
Chai Pig were a trio out of Akron during the whole era of Devo and Tin Huey and all those other bands in the late 70s. And they had a really interesting, quirky kind of sound that was sort of analogous to Devo's sound, with songs that had a really kind of a skewed point of view. And they were great live. I loved this band, but they never did any recording
Don't remember
beyond a
them.
single. They
But
were
I
great.
grew up in Akron.
They were great.
This is Classic Rock All Stars, a band that did some gigs featuring 4 members of Wish You Were Here, J.D. E-Rock, Jim, and Bob Gerhardt. Moving on to Destructor, great shot with Dave in the boombox.
Yeah, there's another great shot. They were so fun to shoot because they had no inhibitions. And actually, the last session, the last session I did with them in my old studio, I had floodlights, and I had just bought this expensive strobe set that I was going to start using. And they got squirt pistols that I had in my studio and started playing with them. They actually shot out the floodlights. And it was a good thing that was the last time I was using them.
There's a Destructor show, one of the Auburn shows, I think, at House of Blues.
Yeah.
That's from 2013.
They were my favorite band from the 80s. I just really loved this band.
I love Dave.
So
He is
much
such a great
energy,
guy.
so much charisma.
That was a fun show.
Yeah.
That's also from that House of Blues show, from the balcony. Some promo shots I did for them. That goes back to 2011. And that's even
early. That's
80s.
85, 86, yeah.
That's a really great shot. Look at those.
Yeah,
Those
they
are
were
fantastic.
so fun. And Devo, that was taken when they were taping, I think it was the Satisfaction video.
Oh, really? Wow.
Downtown, and just an abandoned old theater there. And we just dropped in for the session.
That
to take
Satisfaction
some
video
pictures.
is great.
And that was taken in downtown Akron during a break in their taping. They came out on the street and posed for some pictures. And downtown Akron was just, a devastated area at the time. There were all these, rundown areas and construction and just all kinds of things going on that really worked with Devos so well.
Those are really, really great photos.
And that was at the Agora.
That around the same time?
Yeah.
Very nice.
And that was at the Akron Civic.
Civic, I love that place. Cleveland metal drummer Chris Dora. That was during one of the Auburn or 88.7 Radiothon shows. Don't remember which band that was with, but I always loved drum trails. I always try to get drum trail shots, and that was the best drum trail I ever got. So I included that one. Really, really intense. Great Cleveland drummer. Eric Carmen, that's a great shot.
That was when he had left the Raspberries and he went solo, when he had his big solo album with the hits All By Myself and Never Gonna Fall in Love Again, Sunrise. And he had a Cleveland band called Magic backing him up during that period. And that's all that was the Raspberries toward the end of their career. And that was taken at Idora Park in Youngstown.
I was going to say, I didn't recognize the venue. That's
they
a neat,
played
neat
a
shot.
lot of, during that era, like 71, 72, 73, there were a lot of these outdoor shows at amusement parks that were still open. I mean, we went to Chippewa Lake, just all these places. I remember going to, can't remember the name of it, Newcastle, Pennsylvania. There was one that we went to. But they always, and they had shows at Jog Lake Park. So there were a lot of amusement park shows in the early 70s. This was one of them. That was First Light. I did almost every promo photo that First Light had during their entire career. And they were also fun to shoot because they were very uninhibited in front
I love
of the
this
camera.
photo on the lawn here. I love it.
That was taken at backstage at Blossom, the one year that Rock and Reggae was at Blossom. This was an annual benefit for the Free Clinic that was always headlined by First Light and Ouroboros. And usually it had been out at some farm out in, I don't know, out in Chardon or someplace. And one year they tried having it at Blossom. It was a real disaster because the security guards were heavy-handed. They were telling people to stop playing hacky sack and not walk around and take their seats. And this whole show was kind of about just having a good time for a day.
That's a great photo.
But yeah, again, you can see their goofy personalities that they weren't really uptight about, oh, how does my hair look, They just were having fun.
Yeah, very, very good stuff. Another First Light shot.
Carlos, who's still very big in Cleveland.
Move on to First Snow, a Trans-Siberian Orchestra tribute band featuring some members of Straight On, a Heart tribute band, and also some members of a Pat Benatar tribute band.
Oh, my.
They do a good job with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra stuff. That was taking at Alliance, Ohio, at the Alliance Castle. They did a show right next door to there in an auditorium. And just a really, really cool show. Nice photo. That made it on the cover of, I don't remember what paper it was, the Medina Gazette or something for another show. They've used that a lot for
Frankie
different promo
Yankovic,
stuff. Good
who
old
was
Frankie.
a big Cleveland star of another era when all the boys started to come home from World War II. And there were bars hopping every night in Cleveland, and over in the Collinwood area, most of those bars played polka. And Frankie Yankovic became the biggest star polka ever produced. He had 2 million selling records. The Blue Skirt Waltz, and what was the other one? I should know this. I know both records. But anyway, he was huge, and he ended up going to Hollywood and being on TV, and he toured the country relentlessly almost until the time he died. And I think he died in the early 2000s when he was in his 80s. But he was just a real Cleveland legend, and he was the king of polka.
That's a great photo. Moving on to the Generators. Great shot there.
The Generators were another one of those bands that everybody had high hopes for. WMMS was like 110% behind them. Their promotion director, Dan Garfinkel, actually left the station to manage them. And everybody thought, oh, they're going to have a record deal within 6 months. And when things didn't happen that fast, bands back then tended to get really impatient. And they ended up breaking up. But they had a really, really great repertoire of songs and a great tight pop sound with great vocals. And this was actually taken on the balcony of the Garfield Memorial in Lakeview Cemetery, where you had a whole view of the city behind you.
That's a very
and
nice
we
shot.
did some great shots of them there.
Moving on to some promo shots I did back in 2014 for Georgia Kostiak, a country performer out of Seven Hills. Started when she was a teenager, did some really professional videos, got hooked up with some people, did a lot of shows, and generated quite a buzz for a while. Still performing around the area. We had some fun doing some promo shots. That was a nice one we did in the studio there. Moving on to Glass Harp.
Yeah, Glass Harp. God, they're still a legend today, and it's hard to believe how short-lived they were. I mean, all three of their albums came out in less than 2 years, but this was really, they were the band that got me into the whole music business side of it and got to know people in the industry, because their manager kind of got me on board to get all their fans organized to do like a fan club promo type thing. You pass out flyers and answer the fan mail. And for like a short period, like it was probably a year and a half, every single weekend, people would, there were about 4 or 5 of us girls. We would pile into my old Ford Fairlane. I had a 62 Ford Fairlane that in the end was belching black smoke. And we would go all over the place, to Canton, to Steubenville, to Youngstown, and we would see the band. And they had 3 albums that were widely acclaimed. They didn't sell as well as they should. And Phil Kagi, the guitarist, went on to a flourishing career in Christian music. Dan Pecchio went on to play with the Michael Stanley Band. And John Safara has played in many local bands. He's played in Motown bands and rock bands, and I think he may still be out there playing. Dan's pretty much retired he actually went on to a second career in racing, auto racing.
Considering local artists that have been taken over by Jesus, how about that?
Oh my God. Glenn Schwartz. I actually met Glenn Schwartz the first time when I was a student at Case Western Reserve, and he was, I don't remember if he's opening or if he was just at the show. Al Cooper was playing at the Adelbert Gymnasium, and Glenn had just returned from California, where he was in Pacific Gas and Electric. And I was there for the sound check, taking pictures for the Observer, and that's how I got started taking concert photos. And he walks up to me. I don't know him. He doesn't know me. And he says, "Sister, you need Jesus." And those were the last words he ever spoke to me, that I ever exchanged with him. I avoided him like the plague ever after that, because I don't like people proselytizing at me.
I kind of agree with Glenn. I think you need Jesus.
No, I don't. And I think that this was very recent. This was taken at the Beachland Ballroom.
I think it says 2018.
2018, and it was a kind of a special occasion. It was a birthday party for Nick Amster, who a huge area music fan and investor. He was a silent partner in the Beachland. And he hired me to shoot his 70th birthday party there. He had booked the club, and he had gotten just a whole range of local musicians, including the Schwartz Brothers and the Numbers Band, just a ton of people to play this night for him. And I just got incredible shots. And this was the last show that Glenn played before he passed away. And sadly,
Wow.
we also lost Nick earlier this year. He passed away shortly after the pandemic started, but he is fondly remembered by anyone that had any connection with the Beachland Ballroom. Glenn, I wasn't so into his making sermons between songs, but at one point in his career, he was a great guitar player.
Legendary guitar player.
Yeah.
Next is G-Rock. Gary Stulak, a good friend of mine, played in all kinds of local bands over the years. That was taken at Shooters, I think, back in 2014. Don't really remember which band, but bass player that I'm sure if you go out to clubs and see local bands, you've seen him a bunch of different times. Mm-hmm. Guys with guitars, guy I went to college with,
yeah.
Doug Wood there in the middle.
Doug Wood is a very good friend of mine. Yeah.
Yes, I love Doug.
He's a great guitar player. He plays solo. He plays duos. He plays with this band. He plays as cello-centric.
Darren Johns on bass right there. And
Yeah.
great guitar trio. That was taken on the stairs going up to the balcony at the Akron Civic Theater.
Yeah, I definitely recognize
Nice
it.
fisheye shot there of those three.
Yeah.
Greg Wags Wagner, do you know him? He was a lead singer in Breaker and been in
Yeah.
50 different bands, from Public
I know
Outcry,
Wags, yeah.
all kind of Hate, tons and tons of different bands. I think he is probably the most prolific songwriter in Northeastern Ohio. Since the 80s, he's written hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs, lots of different projects. Just a really grinding, solid player. He's been one of my favorite local metal guitarists. I love that guy, and it's really fun to bust his balls too. James Gang, that was taken when Joe Walsh played at the State Theater, I think 2011, and James Gang showed up. Joe Walsh wanted a picture because he hadn't seen him for a while. They called me backstage after the opener and spent about 20 minutes taking photos with the three of them. And
That's great.
just a really fun, spontaneous experience that I'll never forget. Very, very cool to be with the two of them.
That's actually the James Gang at the Cyrus Erie West in 1970, and I think that was the first paid gig that I had. It was a little teen club out in North Ridgeville.
Great stage. Nice lighting.
Yeah. Oh, there was none.
There's another one of my James Gang photos that we did downstairs at the State Theater. And then we move on to...
Joe Walsh at Blossom.
Yeah.
He's got his MMS hat on. He's, greasing the radio guys. And that was taken at the old Lakefront Stadium during an Indians game.
Very, very cool with him with the Indians cap and,
Yeah.
and the shirt on.
Yeah, Jonah Coslin, of course, with the Michael Stanley Band later with Breathless and Jonah Coslin, the Heroes. And that was Lover's Lane, and one of the reasons I included that was because you see on the top, on the right, is Neil Giraldo, who went on to play with and marry Pat Benatar and write a lot of her songs and be really instrumental in her sound.
Very, very nice. Move on to the Manimals. That was during one of the Auburn shows when Dave from
Manimals.
Destructor was jamming out with them. That was from a House of Blues show, I believe.
They were quite a cult band locally.
Marilyn Manson.
This is one of Joe's favorite
Yeah,
artists.
that's from Rock on the Range trying to shoot me with this little smoky thing after he tried to spit on me. There's a shot before the show. He was standing kind of in the back waiting to come out by the monitor board, and I zoomed in and just got a shot of him.
And that was, I think, at the Wolstein Center.
That looks fairly early in his career.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Now, talk about early in the career. This was when Mushroom Head was first starting, and they were a side project because all these guys were in other kind of well-known local bands. And the mask thing was so that they could separate it from their other bands. They didn't want people to go, oh, yeah, this is a guy that's in whatever. And they rehearsed at this building over on Detroit, about 94th, big old factory building that has been torn down. And these were taken in the freight elevator there. These were probably the first pictures taken of the group.
Very, very nice. We move on to another local icon.
Nine Inch Nails, this was taken at the Q, and this would have been probably 2006 or so.
Nice shot of Trent there too.
Yeah.
And from the same show.
Yep.
And then I think
These were all from the same show. And that one, actually, I believe, was from the Lollapalooza tour.
Oh, okay.
At
I
Blossom.
thought I had some shots from a 2010 show in here.
You
but I
had
guess
them
I
in
don't.
another gallery.
Yeah, I think they might have been in Rock.
Yeah, you had them in another gallery.
Cleveland 1994, great shot of him there.
Yeah.
Our good friend Chris E.
Chris Emig in Olathia, her current band.
We saw some pictures earlier in Cellbound. That's a really great black and white
I
shot
love
of her.
her. She's just a terrific performer.
Paul Christensen, sax player for Michael Stanley, also been a Cleveland musician in a lot of different bands over the years. That was a promo shot we did for his solo album at the Arcade downtown. One of my favorite promotional shots I've done for a musician. I really love that shot.
Per Ubu, that's David Thomas of Per Ubu, who started out, as I mentioned earlier, as kind of a joke band and went on to be like the gods of everyone that loves underground art rock music. This was taken at the Agora, I want to say probably in the late 70s, so that was kind of early in their career.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was taken much later in their career. That was at the
You can't tell.
Beachland in... I don't know, probably 2013, 14, something like that. That's also from the Beachland. That is really early. That was when they were just getting started. That was taken at what became Peabody's Down Under, but it was the Pirates Cove then. And David was known for wearing this really beat-up old trench coat, raincoat that had the hem falling out, and it looked like it had been stepped on. And at one of these shows, they had every Thursday night they had underground rock, so they had all these original bands. At one of them, Devo opened up, and Devo went on stage. Mark Mothersbaugh, guy had found a beat up old raincoat, stuffed pillows under it because Crocus weighed David Thomas. He was known as Crocus. He weighed 300 pounds. And he got this little like shepherd's pipe that Dave Thomas played on stage, and went up and started doing imitation. And Dave Thomas had a very distinctive voice that a friend of mine who went to one of his shows when he described as sounding like a pig being castrated. And after their set, I was in the dressing room with Devo, and Dave comes stomping in, and he fastens his gaze on Mark Mothersbaugh. He goes, "Very funny, Mothersbaugh. Very funny." And he turns around and leaves, just leaving the guys in Devo and stitches.
Oh.
It was a great occasion. And there's Peter Lautner, who was actually one of the founding members of Rocket from the Tombs, and Pere Ubu, was probably instrumental in the fact that they even exist. He was a brilliant guitar player with incredibly eclectic taste in music. He also had a huge taste for drugs and alcohol. Lou Reed was his idol, and he felt he had to do every drug that there was even a rumor Lou Reed did. And as a result, he died in June of 1977, when he was only 24 years old. And actually, one of the musicians that played with him, a woman named Adele Bertai, who moved to New York virtually the same day he died, has written a book called Peter and the Wolves that tells the story about his life. And he's a legendary character. I wish he'd lived, because I would have loved to see what kind of music he would have done. And then Phil Keaggy, we know what kind of music he did. That was with glass harp. But he went on to make Jesus music, and he's done some good Jesus music, and he's also done reunion concerts with glass harp, including last year at the Music Box.
Did he do a reunion album with Jesus?
I don't know what his relationship with Jesus is. Don't ask me about that, okay? And there's the Pretenders. I think this was at Blossom. Chrissie Hynde never really played in a Cleveland band at all. She left for England, I think, about 73, 74. And really didn't start playing music till she was far enough away from her family and friends, probably so that she didn't want to make a fool of herself in front of people she knew. But her grand return was in 1980 when the Pretenders played their first gig in Cleveland at a sold-out Agora show. This was later. That was backstage at the Agora. That was not written for her, that graffiti that says "suck." She just happened to be sitting in front of it, so don't take that as commentary. She was a great live performer. And this may have been at Blossom, too. I'm not sure.
Nice color shot there.
Yeah.
Back to the black and white. That's probably my favorite one of her. That's just a really jubilant, joyous shot.
And it was nice to see, because she could get a little intense and cranky at times, but it was nice to see that upbeat look. And that was taken at WMMS when they came for that first 1980 show. You see Kid Leo there, second from the right.
We move on to Scott Pisotto, another local guitarist, been very active over the last number of years in a bunch of different bands. And we continue on here to some Cleveland roots metal.
Purgatory,
yes,
featuring Jeff Hatrix, who later went on to be one of the lead singers in Mushroomhead.
That was a great shot.
And they were just a terrific band, one of the bands I really liked. And after that, he formed the band Hatrix, and then he moved on to Mushroomhead.
I saw them so many times back in the day with Purgatory.
And Rachel Sweet, she was a young singer out of Akron who actually got started as a country singer when she was 11, 12, because, you always have those young country singers for some reason. And then she got into pop. And she had a couple of albums out as a pop singer. And she had a huge hit with, of all people, Rex Smith.
Wow.
They had a duet hit that was very big on the radio. And then she went on to be a television producer, which is what she does today. That's the Raspberries playing a radio station promo concert at Edgewater Park. That was like 72.
Tim Ripper Owens from House of Blues, I believe, when he was playing with Dio Disciples. Of course, took over for Rob Halford for a couple albums in Judas Priest back in the day.
And that's the legendary Robert Jr. Lockwood, who was the great blues performer, who came out of the South, allegedly learned to play from Robert Johnson, moved to Cleveland in the late 50s, played clubs. I think he first moved to Chicago and did some work there with some of the great blues artists of the 50s there. But he started playing regularly around Cleveland. He had his all-star band, and he was still playing until he died. Gosh, maybe 10 or 15 years ago when he was like in his early 90s. And this is a really historical picture. This is, this is really special because this is probably the only extant picture of Rocket from the Tombs in their first incarnation when they had Charlie Wiener and the Fun Buns behind them. So there are a lot of, these underground art rock music snobs that would just kill for this picture.
Here's a picture of two members of Michael Stanley's Resonators band, Iraq Sosinski and Paul Christensen. That might have been from Tangier, I think 2015. I just really like the perspective of both of them.
I do
nice
too.
A nice fisheye shot.
I just don't care for the Tangier.
Another one of Glenn Schwartz.
Yeah, I don't remember where that was taken.
Sean Vanek from Eternal Legacy and a bunch of Cleveland metal bands. That was from House of Blues. That was a nice fisheye shot from 2011. And of course,
and then we have Sicky from Black Death, who, like I said earlier, just cannot see a camera without posing for it. Just a great guy to take pictures of.
One of the funniest people I've ever known in a long time. Yeah, he is hilarious. Yeah. A very, very funny guy.
Yeah, and there's Stiv Bators from the same show that I had a picture of Cheetah Chrome before. The Dead Boys played at the Agora. That's the same show, the
Agora show. That's a great shot
show.
Right there. Excellent shot.
Yeah, and that's Chin Huey. They were a very artsy kind of rock band from Akron who did one album, I think it was on Warner Brothers, and never really did anything after that. But Ralph Carney went on to play with Tom Waits for decades, and Chris Butler actually formed the Waitresses, and they had that big hit, I Know What Girls Like.
Another shot of Tin Huey right there. Nice group shot.
Excuse me, I Know What Boys Like. I'm sorry.
Venom and James taken in, I think, the equipment room at Don DePue's 609 Studios. Very, very cool band.
I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah. There's a really nice waterfall right there. I do a lot of senior photos and
stuff.
Joe Walsh, that's from the State Theater Show 2011, where I did those James Gang photos down in the basement, in the backstage area.
Yeah, and that's Wesley Bright in the highlight. When he was with the Highlights, who were just a really popular soul band around Cleveland from, I'd say, about 2014 to maybe 2017. A great singer, yeah. And Wild Horses, of course, who were huge in Cleveland in the 70s and 80s. They had the big hit Funky Poodle, big local hit. And they were another band that MMS really promoted heavily.
We move into some of my Wish You Were Here photos. I've been shooting bands since 2002. I've shot, I think, 150 shows or something. A ton of them. And bass player Iraq Sosinski, also the bass player for Michael Stanley's, been in the Resonators now for probably 23 or 24, maybe even 25 years.
Yeah.
That's a shot from Rally in the Alley in Medina. That's from Sandstone Amphitheater in Kansas City from 2002. They went out and did these outdoor shed tours with 5 other tribute bands, something called Fake Fest. That was a Guns N' Roses, a Beatles, Van Halen tribute band, a couple others, and Wish You Were Here. We did about 12 shows, I think, two legs. That's a shot that was used in the Plain Dealer for a shot about the band. I don't remember where that one was from. That's from House of Blues. I think when they were doing the Pompeii set, a very, very cool shot of him bathed in light right there. I love that shot. That's
your most stolen shot.
That is my most stolen shot. That is from the Newport Music Hall in Columbus, 2011. The balcony was closed, and I knew they were doing this laser, and it was a really slow exposure, handheld shot, and I took about 50 photos, and only one of them was completely perfect, and that was the one with E-Rock in the middle. One of my top 10 favorite concert shots. I love that shot. That is a JD drummer for Wish You Were Here, another silhouette shot that I love. That is Wretch, Auburn band.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very cool Auburn band. Back to Wish You Were Here. I don't know how Wretch kind of got in the middle there. Jamie Combs throwing his guitar. That is Marla Brennan and Sharon Fox, 2 backup singers for Wish You Were Here. Both incredible, incredible singers. A shot from Canton, I believe, with their Flying Pig. That goes back to about 2013. That's House of Blues from 2015. Another silhouette shot of the drummer. And we move down to Neil Zaza and his band.
Zaza, yeah. They were really, really big in Cleveland in the late 80s, early 90s. Filled clubs, headlined major venues, toured a lot.
He still tours a lot.
Well, Neil does.
Yeah.
The band played markets all over the Midwest. And I think we're on the verge of breaking out when they basically fell apart because of internal difficulties, partly because Neil was doing a solo thing on the side, and it wasn't so much that he was doing a solo guitar instrumental thing, but that there were people in the band that resented he was doing a solo
That's
instrumental
happened with
guitar
a lot
thing.
of bands before.
And Neil went on. He's probably recorded 19 or 20 albums now. He's toured. He's toured in China. He's toured Thailand. He's toured Italy, Poland. I mean, he's toured all over. And he's also put together these very big, spectacular shows where he collaborates with orchestras, children's choruses, dance groups. He's got one coming up actually at the Akron Civic Theater in early December. He's doing another version of his One Silent Night. And I think he just did his One Dark Night, his Halloween show, which he also sold tickets for, and it was streamed. I'm thinking the next one will be streamed too because they're limiting the attendance. You know, they're having, socially distanced pods and everything. But if you want to see a spectacular show, you should look it up. You could just go to his website and he'll have all the information because he's a guy that has just really made good. He hasn't been in a band since 1992. But he's really built a reputation as a guitar player, and he's worth checking out.
A huge reputation overseas, too.
Well, that's why I said he's
Yeah.
toured. I mean, I don't know how many times he's been to China, but it's repeatedly. He's toured Europe, so it's great. And I don't think any of the other guys are still in music except Ray, who's the second from the right, plays with Neil still when he does one of these big shows. I saw the One Dark Night last year, and Ray was playing with him. I think the other guys have all gone out to do other. Sticky, the drummer, who's on the far right, is in Nashville, and he does sessions.
The One Silent Night show last year at the Akron Civic really got rave reviews.
Oh, I was there. It was incredible. Well, it was the One Dark Night last year, and it was incredible. It was just such. And he worked with Verb Ballets. He had dancers on stage, and actually the One Dark Night that he did this year was a production with Verb Ballets too.
All right, well, that wraps up our week of art gallery exhibits. 1,100 photos we have given you over the last 7 days. You can go back and watch all of the previous nights, all the galleries, at the Sonic and Iconic Facebook page. You can also link there from joekleon.com. If you don't want to watch the videos and watch us talk about the photos, you can just go right to the order page. All the artists for each of the categories are in alphabetical order. Order any size that you like. They make great holiday gifts. You can shop from the safety of your home. You don't have to go out. You get a unique gift. And nothing better for a super fan than to get a unique photo of their favorite artist, especially if they were at the show and you know they were at one of the shows. Support local artists, support local business, neoproimaging.com. And if you don't want to pay shipping, you can also pick up the photos downtown at NEO.
But wear your masks.
But wear your masks.
Stay safe and healthy, because here in Cuyahoga County and Cleveland, they've just announced a lockdown, so be careful.
And, you can stay safe by ordering your Christmas presents at home. Order these photos.
It's great.
They're a great
in your
gift.
own living room. You don't have to go out.
You can even have them shipped anywhere that you want. So right now we're going to get into part 2 of the Michael Stanley oral history. If you're a Michael Stanley fan, it's going to be worth the wait. It is great. 2 hours long. It is a second part. The first part is on Wednesday. You can go back to our Sonic and Iconic Facebook page to check out the first part if you missed it. Second part, again, hosted by David Spiro, jumps around throughout his career. It was taped at our Raining Rock exhibit at 78th Street Studios. And let's get into it. Part 2 of the Michael Stanley oral history. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this week. And let us know what you thought of the photos, the presentation, and hopefully we'll see your name on the list of people who've bought stuff.
And we really appreciate everybody who spent the week with us. It's been fun.
Previous galleries, we've done about 300 photos. We did 1,100. So go back, check out some of the previous stuff, pick up some Christmas presents, and enjoy part 2 of the Michael Stanley oral history. The last thing we're going to broadcast. You're finally done with us at the Sonic and Iconic Virtual Art Gallery. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks, Cindy. Any questions? Oh,
Thank you for all coming out today.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
You obviously are people that don't like to be outside on nice days, so.
You know, I thought we'd start, I think, what was it, I just need the dates on this thing. Where were, 1986.
7, 87.
87. You need to fix your Wikipedia.
January,
Yeah. I remember it was the holiday time,
yes.
and it's the Front Row Theater, and you played, I don't know, 58 nights or,
It was. It was a lot. It was like a real gig. It was like having a real job.
yeah, what was it, like 7 or 8 shows?
I think it was 14.
Was it? Really? I got
They kept adding them, and then sooner or later it was, you got to stop this.
Yeah.
You know.
I was only invited to one. But the last show, that stage is going around. You're playing your last song. What are you thinking?
It was very strange because, especially because there were so many shows leading up to it. I think we originally put 3 on sale, and those sold out like immediately. And then it was like people wanted more, and so we kept adding them and adding them and adding them. But anyway, it still didn't seem real at show 10 or show 11 or whatever. But when we got to the last one, it was, you know, everything was going to be the last time. It was going to be the last time you did a sound check. It was going to be the last time that you know, put your stage clothes on in the dressing room. It was the last time that all these people that were a family were going to be together. And then as the night went on, and I'm sure, I don't know how it was for anybody else, but for me it was like, oh, okay, that might be the last time I play Rosewood Bitters on stage or any place, or this song or that song. And some of those, and you got to be honest, I mean, sometimes it was like, thank God this is the last time I will have to play this song, you know, and no one can make me play this song again, you know, that sort of thing. And like I said, the Jane Scott story is that when it was all over, the front row had backstage. There was a sort of a big communal dressing room, and then there were small dressing rooms off the side of that. And you know, your family and friends and stuff hung out in the middle, and everybody else did their thing in the individual ones. And I just stayed in the one in there forever. I didn't want to come out because I realized when I came out and when I got in my car and drove home, that was it. It was over. And this had been my life for, 15, 20 years. And I really hadn't thought about what was going to come on next, but it was the whole thing of, I thought if I stay in this dressing room, it's still going to be happening until I leave, but sooner or later it just got totally quiet. And the apocryphal story, which is true, is when I finally went out of the dressing room, the only person left sitting in the room was Jane Scott. And it was a fitting end to the whole thing. I mean, it was just like, if you had to end it with somebody, it was nice that it was Jane.
Well, let's go back over some of those, the major shows. I mean, obviously, Blossom, you set the record. The old Coliseum, you set the record. How many nights you've probably played down in Akron at Tangiers, I don't think people have worked as long as you've done shows down there. When you look back at those things and realize, hey, I'm a kid from Rocky River.
Me too. Me too.
So I'm a kid from Shaker Heights.
Right.
And I know this guy from Rocky River, and he's accomplished all this stuff. The cool part about that was the amount of people that opened for you that were, went on to be megastars.
Big stars.
Yes. Billy Joel down in Akron, where, he was upset because he didn't know who you were and wondered why he was opening for you.
I did, just to go off on that, I did a few years ago, I think it was 2 times ago, that when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions were here in Cleveland, they have a party the night before for the high rollers down at the Rock Hall. And Terry Stewart had asked if I would do a couple songs. And it was Darlene Love, which was great. It was Felix Cavalier and I forget who else. But Liberty DeVito, who had been Billy Joel's drummer for years, was playing drums in the band. And I went up to him afterwards and I introduced myself. I said, I don't know if you remember me. we played a couple gigs together way back when. I just want to tell you, I think you're a great drummer. And he goes, Michael Stanley. He says, yeah, I remember you. We played Akron. I said, you remember that? He goes, oh yeah, because we opened for you. And I said, yeah, it was kind of crazy, wasn't it? And it was, I said, I don't think, Billy was very happy about that. And he goes, no, Billy was not happy about that. And I said, well, 80 billion records and $1 billion later, he's probably gotten over it. And Liberty goes, Billy doesn't get over anything.
Well, yeah. John Mellencamp.
Yeah, all those.
Where was that, at the Coliseum, right?
That was at the Coliseum. I think that was when it was John Cougar and the Zone. That was the name of his thing at the time.
But there was a show he did in New York early on. I don't even think Bob had joined the band yet. And the headliners were the Dictators. Mm-hmm. And the middle band was Michael Stanley Band. Mm-hmm. And the opening act was their first U.S. appearance, it said, AC/DC.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other part of that is we've played with AC/DC 6 times. And they've opened for us every time, which makes no sense. But this is just the way it was back then. And to be honest with you, nobody cared about us or the AC/DC. They came to see this band, the Dictators, who were in the punk thing and were big in New York and on the East Coast. And I can remember backstage at that show was Sid Vicious and Johnny Rotten. And it was kind of like, it was like getting up close to the real, belly of the beast here, And it was, Johnny was just like you thought. He was just complete jerk, And what's his name? Sid was the highest individual I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it was like, this guy's not going to make it out of the, down the stairs, let alone another 6 years or so. But he did, so you got to give him a little credit there.
But when you saw them, did you go, wow, these guys are really good?
I didn't pay much attention to them.
Yeah, I don't even remember seeing them that night.
Which pisses me off at this point because it became one of my favorite bands. AC/DC, not the Dictators.
Yeah.
And I have the utmost respect for them, but I really didn't pay much attention to them. I think it was more of a thing like, hey, did you see the dudes walking around? He's up there with some shorts and stuff, It's like, it's crazy. He's about this tall and he's running around in a little like Cub Scout uniform.
That's right.
But that was back, with the original lead singers. It was there. So, but that's what it was. You play if you look at it, because you were there for a lot of them, and with all different artists you've worked with. If you look back at all the shows that you did and some of the pairings of people, it's just unbelievable. It's like, why would you put these two people together on a bill, And it usually comes down to the fact that somebody was just, their touring thing met up or whatever.
I remember doing a show with King Crimson.
We opened for
and
King.
got the review. We got the review
before
that night.
we had a drummer.
Yeah,
it was three of us playing acoustic music before. It was Jonah and Danny Pecchio and I opening for King Crimson. And who would do that?
Bill Graham did it all the time. He'd put Miles Davis with the Allman Brothers, or it worked.
Yeah, it was just the way it was. You got to see a lot of cool music, and probably some people that you wouldn't normally see. I remember Mike Belkin, after we were with Belkin Productions, he called me up one day. He said, "Do you want to do some Kiss dates? Do you want to open for Kiss?" And I said, "No, I do not want to open for Kiss." I said, "I don't want to do that." And I hung up the phone, and I was all haughty about the thing. And then I thought, "Oh, wait a minute.
20,000.
I've never seen Kiss. I might as well get paid to see Kiss, So I called him back. I said, "Yeah, let's, we'll take a few." And so we did it. We started doing some things. The first one was in Indianapolis, and we went down. We opened, and then we came out. We were going to watch the show. And all of a sudden, the big Kiss patrol was there, and they're security guys, and they're like, back in your dressing room. And like, why is there an active shooter alert here or something? I said, no, the band's not coming out of their dressing room until you're back in your dressing room. I said, what do you think we're going to do? Demand autographs at this point or something? But that was just, it was at the height of the Kiss,
Mania.
And they were huge. And years later, I was talking with Gene Simmons, and I said, I got to ask you a question. I said, when we did those dates for you, I said, you guys were like the biggest band in the world, or one of them at that point. And I said, you had the shittiest PA system I've ever heard in my life. And this was, they were playing the Hoosier Dome or whatever. I mean, it was 20,000. I said, it was just horrible. And he said, well, he was real indignant. I said, well, what's your point? And I said, the point is you were one of the biggest bands in the world. You were making tons of money. Your fans loved you. Why didn't you put a little more money into the presentation of the thing? And he goes, do you really think they care what we sound like? I said, good point. So, you get these little things down the road.
But you played with some, amazing band. You did a bunch of shows with the Eagles over the years.
No, we did, for a long time, we did something on every tour.
Yeah.
From real early on. I remember we did a show down in Tampa, an outdoor show at the stadium it was us,
Fogelberg, right?
the Eagles, Ronstadt, Charlie
right.
Daniels,
Yeah.
like two other acts like that. And those were great shows. And it was probably like $6 to get in, something like that.
Yeah. And people went and listened to the music.
Yeah, they paid attention.
That was kind of cool. You know what? I wanted to go through the band members. And just...
We have gone through some band members.
Yeah, you have gone through band members. But I just wanted you to just, give me a sentence or two about each guy. Just your thoughts on. We'll start with Jonah.
Jonah's one of the most unique individuals I ever met, and I met him because of you. He and David and Jonah were friends in high school, and we started to put together some sort of band. David suggested this guy he knew who wrote songs and played guitar, and Jonah was living out in Colorado at the time, and he came back and we played for a few hours in the afternoon, checked each other out, and said, but he's one of the most unique guys I ever met, and he really is one of my favorite songwriters. He's written some great songs, and for the longest time I just always felt he was his own worst enemy. He always wanted to do something different than what he was doing at the time. There was always something there. And when he left the band after the Stage Pass album, I totally realized why. He was getting, he was singing half the songs. I was never opposed to another songwriter in the band. I was never opposed to another singer. I liked it. I grew up in the Beatles. Everybody sang, everybody wrote songs. It was more fun that way and less work. That was the deal. But Jonah wanted to be the front guy, totally, and I understood that. And then I remember after a few years of him doing that, and he put together a really good band with Breathless, and they made a couple of really nice albums, but he came back to me, he said, man, I never realized how hard it was to hold one of these things together and to drive the boat. I said, yeah, it's not easy, and nobody teaches you how to do it. You just kind of got to do it, and figure it out and sink or swim. That was more than one sentence.
But it was a long sentence.
That's
fine. It was a run-on sentence. Danny Pecchio.
Danny Pecchio is he's a great guy. He really is, and I think he had the best hair in the band. He was the best looking guy. He drove a Mercedes when I met him. I'd never met anyone that drove a Mercedes that didn't own a store or something, So he pulled in with his Mercedes, and he was married to a French girl. It was like, well, this guy's got the rock star thing down completely here, And he'd done a couple albums with the Glass Harp, so that was his point. But I think the best explanation of Dan, and I think you were around for this, is one of the first road trips we took was to go down and join the Eagles, start on a tour down in Atlanta, I think, or Florida someplace. And we rented a motorhome, and from Cleveland to Atlanta is a pretty good jaunt. And Dan spent the entire time trying to convince us that 30 miles an hour downhill was faster than 30 miles an hour uphill. And that's Dan. That's Dan.
Tommy Dobek.
Tommy Dobek, the man who's still never joined the band. Everybody, I tell that story, and people think I'm lying, but it's true. He's never joined the band. And since the band broke up, I guess it's sort of doesn't matter at this point. But Tommy's just one of my favorite people on the planet, and I don't know how he still does it the way he does, even though we don't play all that much. When we do play, we play pretty hard and we play pretty long. And he's just a little dude, and he's getting littler. And and I can keep when I feel bad, if I'm standing at the mic and I feel bad, like my back hurts or my ankles hurt or this, I turn around and I look at Tommy and I go, I have nothing to bitch about here, because I'm asking this guy to play a whole lot of difficult stuff. It's not like he's just playing slow blues for 2.5 hours. He's doing things that are rather intricate, and he's never lost his joy for the whole thing, and he's never lost the fact that he has no idea what any of the names of the songs are, especially the ones we've been doing for 40 years ago. Oh, Tom, we're going to do Rosewood. He goes, how's that go?
And he's been in every incarnation that you've done, I think, right?
Yeah, and people at this point in time, when you're this old, people ask you, like, well, how long are you going to keep doing this? What's the deal? And my answer...
I wasn't going to ask that.
Yeah, well, here it comes. And my answer, I realized, as long as you can physically do it and you want to do it, but other than that, my answer is I will do it as long as Tommy wants to do it. When Tommy says he doesn't want to do it anymore, it won't happen anymore. I mean, it might be one show after that or something to say goodbye or something, but that's it. I don't want to play with another drummer. I don't want to break in another drummer. Breaking in drummers is the worst thing in the entire world. And he and we've been playing together for 47 years. And we pretty much know, for better or worse, we know what each other are going to do. And, we know where the bodies are buried, and we've seen it all. And I really don't have any interest in doing it if he's not on the drums.
Bob Palander.
Bob Palander's the brother from the brother from another mother. When we stole Bob from a group called Rain in Cleveland, and we had a habit of breaking up the best bands in Cleveland. When we stole Tommy from Circus, and we stole Bob from Rain, and that sort of thing. But when we compared notes, Bob and I, our whole growing up thing, even though we were like 40 miles apart, we're pretty much the same. His dad was exactly like my dad. His mom was like my mom. We listened to the same music. We did the same stuff. We just didn't know each other. And then he was the first guy that I really developed a writing thing with. It's people. It's not always easy to write songs with people because we have different ways. Joan and I couldn't write songs together, because we wrote one song. And the whole time we were together, and it's the shittiest song MSB ever did, and nobody ever asked for it, type thing. But it was like we did it. But we had a kind of a same approach toward songwriting, coming at it from a lyrical standpoint more than a musical standpoint. And when you get that together, then you really get a lot of arguments, and you get a lot of, oh no, it should be this and this should be this. So it's just easier to let the guy do it. With Bob, it was a completely different thing. First of all, he was a piano player. He's going to come up with music that I don't come up with and never would in a million years. And second, and most importantly, he just hates writing lyrics. So that's what I liked, and it was great there. So he would just give me music, and then I would see if I could figure out the puzzle and what it was and put lyrics to it. And the first song we ever wrote together was Why Should Love Be This Way? Which is a pretty damn good song, and it's like it's not like starting with Louie Louie or something. But I always, and some of the things that we have written together are some of my favorites that I've ever been involved with, and it's because with my musical ability and as a guitar player, I would never have come up with that music. I never, and so I get to participate in something unique and something that I wouldn't do on my own.
So Jonah leaves, and you place him with Gary Markowski, an interesting person.
Truly. Gary is a wonderful, wonderful guy. And he was really necessary at that point. We didn't know it as much as we found out. Because Gary was a human dynamo. His whole thing was as a performer on stage. He was a really good guitar player. I've always, some people have kind of slagged him that way, and that's not true. He was a very good guitar player. He wasn't a great guitar player in coming up with parts, which is important. So that put it on the rest of us to come up with the parts when it was as far as recording. But if you could get it across to Gary, he could play anything that you asked him to play. But his whole thing to the band was energy. We were pretty laid back before that. And I remember, I think Bob Farrell we'd hire him to film some of the shows, just, rough videotapes so we could see what was going on. And after the first couple of shows of looking at Gary on stage with us, I went to the rest of the guys and said, dudes, we got to start moving because we look like dead people up there. I mean, this guy is like, he's like, the Energizer Bunny. And it was good. And
or the Ant-Man.
The Ant-Man, yeah.
Yes.
I don't want to talk about that.
Okay.
But he forced us to be a better visual live band, to be more into it. Because you had to keep up with Gary.
And at some point you decided, let's add a second keyboard player.
Well, we did an album in England, Cabin Fever, and there was it was Gary's first album, and really Bob's first studio album. He had joined when we were doing Stage Pass, but this was his first studio album. And it was also the first time that Bob and I had written some songs together. So it was a much more keyboard-oriented album than had been before, because we didn't have a keyboard player before. And so we realized that when we were going to have to try to reproduce these songs live, we were going to probably need a second keyboard player. And if we could find somebody that sang, that would be an extra bonus. And it was really like, we're just looking for a sideman here. We're just looking for somebody to do these parts, sing some backgrounds, and let's move on. And that led us to Kevin Rowley. And to this day, I still don't even know how we got Kevin. I didn't know Kevin. Somebody in the band did. I think Tommy knew him. I think Bob might have known him. But the great thing too is, Kevin at the time we hired him, he was playing in a lounge band at a Holiday Inn over by Randall Park Mall. He and the other guy, one of the other two guys in the band was Neil Giraldo. So this was a pretty talented little bar band or lounge band. But they were, I think they had a lady singer, and I don't know who was playing bass or drums. But that's what Kevin was doing at the time. And I don't remember any auditions. I don't remember anything. All of a sudden, he was there, And I had to sign off on this, but I don't remember any of it. So that speaks to the drug problem that was it.
But he comes up with a single that all of a sudden you're on the charts.
Yeah.
He's singing it.
Yeah.
And did that bother you at all? That wow, now we've got a hit and it's not my song.
People don't believe it, but it didn't bother me. Well, would I have rather it have been me? Would it have made more sense? Sure. But I had done singles in the original band. Jonah had done
Nothing's going to change my mind
and stuff. I didn't care about that. I didn't care about who sang the thing. I cared that the band moved forward, and the band got more popular, and the band sold more records, and the band got more gigs. And in actuality, that He Can't Love You was not supposed to be the first single off the album. I have ads from Billboard and Radio and Records with another single. It says, includes the new Heartland album includes the single, and the first single was supposed to be All I Ever Wanted. Why they changed it? I know they did a focus group thing, the record company.
Oh, right. That's right around the time all that was started.
Yeah, and they showed me the stuff when they got done with it. And it was like a phone book. And they just, from this testing that they'd done, they said that He Can't Love You, they thought had the most success as a single. And Kevin would be the first to tell you this too. He Can't Love You was pretty much a filler song on the album. It wasn't one of the things we concentrated on, and it was like, oh, we need another rocker. Okay, I got one. Okay, let's do that. And we did it. The other song that they tested was Lover. And I still have these files somewhere. It came back and they said Lover was the most unique song there can be, which I thought was a compliment, but not so much. And they said, Lover is a ballad which appeals to men more than women. And men don't like ballads.
Right.
You know, so it was like, whoa, I don't know how to interpret that, but.
Well, they were wrong.
Well, it's lasted
right.
pretty well. It's all right.
And now Danny's out of the band, and you've got Michael Gismondi.
We met Michael Gismondi through Gary Markowski and through the guys on our road crew who are all from the Warren, Youngstown area. And Giz was a bass player down in there. But actually, the first time I saw Giz, he wasn't even playing in the band. He was doing sound for Gary's band in Youngstown.
Oh.
And they said, well, we got this guy that he's a really great bass player. And I said, well, who's he play with? He goes, he doesn't play with anybody. He's a sound guy. I go, well, that doesn't sound real good, you know. But Giz was, besides being the nicest person on the face of the earth, one of the all-time best musicians I've ever met. And I said, it's so funny because, you know, we all are pretty superficial. We all judge people walking down the street. You see somebody walking towards you, and you already made up your mind, like, this guy's cool, or this guy's a jerk, or I don't know what she's all about, or this or that. If you saw Tommy Dobeck and Michael Gismondi walking down the street together, the first thing you're not going to think is, well, these guys are a seriously hot rhythm section, you know what I mean? But that's what they were. And I said, when Gary joined the band, we became more visual. When Giz joined the band, we became a real band. Everybody had to up their game musically now, because that's how good he was. And everybody in the band was good, but they had to, you know, he forced us to go to another level. That was cool.
And at this time, with Giz in the band, you find yourself on American Bandstand with Dick Clark, and there's a trivia contest. Is that?
Giz knows everything, especially about older music, you know. He's just a walking, and this was even before the internet. He knows his stuff. And so somehow that came up in the little talk thing with Dick Clark. Like he said something, and he said, you guys may not have heard of this. And I said, well, no, Giz back here, he knows everything. And so Dick asked him a trick question, like, who was the lead singer of the Drifters? Well, there was 4 lead singers of the Drifters,
Yeah.
Depending on what record you're talking about. And Giz sort of, and he blew his big moment on national television, and no one ever let him forget this. And he didn't forget it. I'm sure he's been in therapy over that for years. But that was the other thing. We were going on a tour out west, and I was sitting in Mike Balkin's office, and it just hit me. I said, hey, wait a minute. You always told me you and Dick Clark were good friends. He goes, well, we are good friends. We've been good friends for years. I said, well, why the hell have we never been on American Bandstand if you're such good friends with Dick Clark? And he goes, well, why would you want to be on American Bandstand? I said, well, are you kidding? He goes, it doesn't mean anything anymore. And it didn't at that point. I mean, it wasn't what it, I said, I don't care. I said, it's American Bandstand. I said, this is why I started this whole thing. But when I was like 8 years old, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be on American Bandstand. And he goes, well, if you want to be on American Bandstand, we can make it happen. And I said, well, make it happen. So like in a day, he said, okay, you're going to be doing the show between this date and this date. You're going to go and you're going to tape it here. I said, great. I said, one more thing. He said, what? I said, we have to have our picture taken with Dick Clark. He goes, really? I said, yeah, really. We really have to do this. And all that went as planned. But the coolest thing when I look back at, if I ever look at the tape, is that it was American Bandstand, and it was just the same way that it was when I was watching it when I was, 10 years old, except clothes had changed and hairstyles had changed. Dick's sitting in the middle of the bleachers with the kids around him, and he's got his mic. And he's talking about us, and he seems just as excited as if it was the Beatles that were there. because that's Dick Clark. That's his job. You know, you would have thought, oh, Dick's really into these dudes, you know. Now, Dick hasn't even met us yet, you know, let alone heard us probably. But that was the thing. And somebody else said, well, you're going to, you know, you have to lip sync on American Bandstand. I said, dude, I've been practicing this for 50 years. I said, you're going to see the best lip sync you ever saw. Yeah. And it was a good lip sync.
Was it as exciting as doing Merv Griffin?
It was more than Merv. I mean, Merv was kind of a, it was like, we're going to do the Merv Griffin show, you know? And so that was cool. And we did a lot of television around that. We did that, and we did Solid Gold and something. But Merv's was, we got to talk to Merv a little more than Dick. But Merv, at the same time, you would have thought, you know, that we and Merv were old friends, that they know how to do it, they sell it. And once again, it was a lip sync and no problem. And I always thought the Merv Griffin set looked really cool on TV when you watched it, and the background was all shiny and, you know, like sort of like mirrored looking. Well, when you actually get there, it's aluminum foil. That's the whole thing of showbiz, you know, everything's, you know.
I mean, Kramer set it up in his living room.
Yeah, it's exactly.
So, you know, he had the whole set.
But Merv was nice. He was very nice. He was very cool.
So, you know, you guys are national artists, and still the perception is you never got out of Cleveland.
Yeah, that was the perception. But I think it was because we weren't very, we didn't have a look. We weren't real different. It was our strength and it was our weakness. We were the guys next door playing in a band. That was a strength because it was people like that, and they liked the fact that, well, I could just as easily be you up there as me. You know, if you look at Rod Stewart, you're not thinking that. You're going like, well, I can't do that. I mean, look at that suit and look at that hair and look at the, you know, thing. But so it was hard to pick us out from all the other boy next door bands, you know, the REO Speedwagons and the Journeys and the, you know, Seeger, and we all pretty much looked the same, you know. And I think, like I said, I think that worked for us, and it also, from a marketing standpoint, it was a hindrance. And you know, I'm still to this day playing in a band full of boys next door, with one girl next door. But that's the strength of the thing. It's you know, it's not, nobody looks like Rod Stewart. And I think it was the thing of, you know, I didn't want to have to get up and go to the grocery store and, you know, look like Rod Stewart, you know, which I think Rod has to do. But
he has people.
People to do it.
Yes,
That's
he has
true.
people. So the shortest member in MSB was Rick Bell, playing saxophone.
You mean the shortest of time?
Shortest in time.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That was it.
I think he might have been no.
He wasn't the shortest.
Yeah.
He wasn't the shortest. Rick Bell was, he was a great find, and he added a lot. Once Clarence Clemens played on the Heartland album with us, and the two songs that were the most popular from there were He Can't Love You and Lover, and they both had a saxophone on them, it was pretty obvious that more expenses were in line, and we were going to have to find a sax player. And Rick, around here, Rick was the guy, you know. And there weren't a lot to choose from, first of all. And Rick played, I don't know what people, you know, if you realize how different saxophone players are, but there's just as different as any other musician. In other words, you know, I had used David Sanborn on things, Show on the Road and other things, and David is just an amazing, amazing musician. But when it came time to do the Heartland album, and I knew that we wanted sax on a couple of things, and somebody said, why don't you just call Sanborn up again? I said, this is not a Sanborn kind of song. It doesn't need that. You know, and Jimmy Fox from the James Gang was working at a management company then, and he asked me, he said, well, if you could get anybody you wanted, who would you want? I said, I'd want Junior Walker or Clarence Clemens. I said, that's the type of sax that we need on this stuff here. And Jimmy shakes his head and walks away. And the next day he comes into the studio and he goes, Clarence will be here on Tuesday. I said, Clarence who? And he said, Clarence Clemens. I go, what are you talking about? He said, well, you said you wanted Junior Walker or Clarence Clemens. Junior Walker's busy. He goes, Clarence Clemens is going to be here on Tuesday. I go, what did you do? You just called him? And he goes, well, yeah. That's how you do it, you know? And he said, what's the worst he can say? He can say no, you know? And so like 2 days later, we're waiting for Clarence to come to the, you know, because they were on a break from, I don't know if it was a Born to Run tour or whatever was going on. And all of a sudden, the other guys in the band, they're going, because we were producing this album ourselves for the first time. So we were in charge totally. And we're all thinking, okay, we want to do this song with Clarence and this song and this song. And then somebody goes, well, just, I hate to bring this up, but what if he sucks? You know? This has happened before. Well, you run into people who you think are going to be really good, and they start playing, and you go, what is this? This is just horrible, you know? And I said, they go, who's going to tell Clarence Clemens that he sucks? It was like, well, no one's going to tell him he sucks. You know, we were trying to get out of it some other way, you know, but, and they're all looking at me, they're going, yeah, your name on the band, you know, so you're going to, but it turned out not only did he not suck, he was great, he was a great guy, and we worked together on some other projects over the years, but it's just those things of, you don't know what's coming around the corner.
Of course not, yeah. And you talk about getting more musical, and now you add Danny Powers. Mm-hmm.
Once again, you had to pick up your game. You had to pick up your game if you wanted to play with Danny, right from the start. And I think he was like 9 years old when we got him in the band. First of all, he immediately became the youngest, the cutest, and the best musician, you know. And so he had that going for him. And but the nice thing too is he had Gary's energy. He was a runner. He liked running around the stage. He liked doing all that stuff. And we really, when we hired Danny, I don't think we did any gigs before we actually went in the studio to do the You Can't Fight Fashion album. I think he actually started playing with us in the studio. And it was great because not only could he play anything you asked him to play, but he was really good at coming up with things on his own. And that's a big thing. And in a band, you know, everybody's got to pull their weight as much as they can. And the ability to come up with meaningful and good parts is really important. I mean, you guys, and any of us, just as fans, we just want to hear the final thing. But you got to, if you actually sit back and go, well, how did they come up with that little thing or that little thing or that little thing? Somebody had to come up with it, and then somebody had to actually play it. You know, so that was the best musical version of the band. Was the one with Danny and with Ricky before Ricky left. That was, you know, if you saw that version of the band, that was the best.
So we go back to the Front Row Theater, you get in your car, and you've had all this behind you, and you have no plan. Yet we're, 18 albums, 19 albums later? 15 albums later? 15 albums later.
People bring security, I bring fact, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought
that was fact.
Yes.
F-A-C-T.
Fact,
good.
yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I wanted to make sure of that. I hire security guys that are fact guys. Yes. Okay.
I really thought that was the end of the music thing. You know, when the Front Row was over. And part of me was really bummed about that. And I think a part of me too was maybe a little relieved, you know? I mean, it was like, I can remember thinking, this is weird, but I can remember thinking, Bob and I had Cavalier season tickets at that point. We'd had them for a few years. I can remember.
Well, you did the songs. Right?
I said, I can go to a Cavs game and scream and yell and not worry if I can talk the next day. Not worry if I can sing the next day. I said, that's really cool. And I thought, well, that's not cooler than not having a job, you know? It's like, but I had no idea, you know, what to do. And I don't really know what I did. I guess I was doing television at the time. But it took about 6 months, and I just thought, I want to play again. Maybe not all the time, but I want to play again. See if I can still do it. It's 6 months. 6 months is a long time to lay off something like that. And so I put together with it was Michael Stanley and Friends, we called it. We did that for 8 years, 6 years, whatever. But it was cool because I didn't have to, it was the same core of people, and most of them came from the band. But I could go, oh, I want this guitar player this time, and the next time I want this other guitar player, this or that. There was nothing to live up to. And they were fun shows, and they were fun shows to do. I remember one of the most fun shows I ever did, we did it at Nautica. And I decided for that, come on in, sit down, have some pizza.
There's pizza?
I said, for once, I'm going to put together exactly the band I want, my dream band. And not so much people, as much as when I put together a band that had a drummer, a percussion player, a bass player, 3 guitar players, 2 keyboard players, 3 female background singers, and a 5-piece horn section. And it was the most fun ever. It was just great, you know.
And you walked away with how much money?
I walked away with nothing, absolutely nothing. You know,
Funny how those dreams work.
I know.
Yeah.
But I did it once, and it was cool.
But I mean, album after album after album, and a lot of people, and I've seen Chuck Yarborough's reviews of stuff, like the last 4 or 5 albums of yours, everyone is better. As a songwriter, and the growth of a songwriter from when you first wrote Louisville A.D. Up until songs from the last album, what have you learned? I mean, what?
I learned to write better songs.
Yeah, but how did the craft move along? Are there spots where you go, okay, well, oh, this song was this was a spot, and now this one's a spot?
There probably would be if I had researched it and said this was the one and stuff. But it's people ask, oh, you're a songwriter, it's so mystical, which is why I wanted to be a songwriter, because that's the part that mystified me the most when I was a young kid. I could figure out that you could learn to play guitar, you could learn to play the drums. I saw there were people that taught you that. And I had friends that actually, took lessons on something, piano or whatever. And there was a way to get there if you wanted to do the work and the time and had the money to get an instrument. But who came up with these songs that everybody did? Where did these come from? I mean, that was the mystery to me. And that was what I wanted to do, and that's what I wanted to find out. I mean, the whole thing you think about it, there was a morning that Buddy Holly got out of bed, and That'll Be the Day did not exist. And when he went to bed that night, That'll Be the Day existed. That's a good day's work, And I wanted to know how you did that. And there was nobody to ask. And you might know a guitar player that lived down the street, or a drummer, or your uncle played ukulele, or somebody played trombone, or you had those ways in, but nobody said, oh yeah, there's a couple songwriters that live around the corner, just go talk to them. And there wasn't anybody to talk to. You just had to try to figure it out. And it was the thing of, it's a good way to do it, it's a hard way to do it, but you figure it out and suddenly that works for me, doesn't mean it's going to work for you. But anybody can write a song. You can go home today and write a song, trust me. It'll probably be a shitty song, but it'll be a song. And then the next one you write will be a little less shitty than that one, if you're doing it the right way. And it still mystifies me that there wasn't something there, and then there is something there. It also mystifies me that you'll write a song and you'll spend whatever amount of time working on it, and then you'll finally play it for whoever you play it for to get some sort of feedback on it. I can remember doing this, and was one of the guys in the band. I don't know who it was, but I played them the song, and they're grooving to it, hearing it, and they say, "That's really cool." I said, "You like it?" They go, "Yeah, I don't like it as much as when Van Morrison did it." I said, "But and then you go, oh my God, I just ripped off Van Morrison completely." I mean,
There's only so many notes.
I know there's 12 notes. We all use the same ones, but it's the songwriting thing is. I've always said I always kept a notebook, and most songwriters do some sort of little notebook so they can write stuff down. Because I could be talking to you or anybody in a normal conversation like, "Oh, aren't these photographs nice?" And, or what, where was this from? And you just may say a phrase, and my lizard songwriter brain goes, "Wait, title, subject matter, whatever." I don't hear whatever you say after that. I'm just trying not to forget that phrase or things. So as soon as you do, you walk, on the corner and you write it down in your book, and then you put it there, and then later you refer to that. And sometimes it works, and other times you go like, "What the hell is this? What does this mean? Why did I think this was important? But that's the way most songwriters function, I think.
Well, it's weird, and I think you've told me you don't think this is true, but I remember driving home from Toledo after a show, and somehow or another we'd gone to some mall and we each bought corduroy suits.
I remember that.
The corduroy suits.
I totally remember that.
And we're driving home and it's snowing like crazy. And I'm, of course, driving and pulling my hair and all this stuff, and you're sitting next to me. And you said, "Man, how great is it, whoever put these lines on the highway?" And obviously that stuck there somewhere.
Yeah.
And eventually it came out to thank God for the guy who put the white lines on the highway. But I remember you saying that to me, because I was going to go write a song. But I didn't know how. And
it would have been a shitty song.
It would have been a shitty song. Right?
Yeah, that line's that's an interesting line. I think it's a good line.
Obviously, everybody sings it.
But you wonder why all of you picked up on that line, And I truly believe that when it first happened, that it wasn't the I'm driving in the snow thing. I totally believe it was a cocaine thing, that people were picking up.
That was the snow.
People were picking
used to
up
get
on.
that mixed up. Cocaine,
which wasn't
snow,
how it was meant
right.
at all. But,
That's right.
But somebody else, once again, back to the, how long are you going to do this, or how will you know when it's over? And so it's a two-pronged answer here. David and I went to see a guy we really liked. I won't even mention his name, but in concert, doing a solo thing years ago. And we were both huge fans of this guy, and he was older. He'd been in all sorts of things, and was down at the old Wilbur's. And we went, and it was like, it was just awful. It was horrible. And the guy was pissed off and just really nasty and not playing well, and it was embarrassing. And I said to David, I said, "Look, if I get like, you got to tell me if I get like that." I said, he should not be on stage. He should not be doing this for any number of reasons. And David said, "I'll tell you." Well, the other way I figured I'll know when it's the end, other than if Tommy says he's not going to play anymore, is for years, and I don't remember even when this happened, when it comes to thank God for the man who put the white lines on the highway line, I step away from the microphone and everybody else sings it. Well, some night I'm going to step away and no one's going to sing it. And everybody in the band will look at each other and go like, "Okay, that's it, we're done."
And it won't be because you forgot the words.
Really?
Right. So, how many albums was it? 15? 15 albums. You make a decision, you know what, I've got songs in me, I've got to get these out.
That's pretty much what it is. It's almost like, you want a doctor to take this disease out of you. Like, get this out of me so I can do something else.
And then, how long between end of MSB and that first record was there?
I'm not sure. Was Ghost Poets before the Coming Up for Air?
Yeah.
that might have been a way to ease back into it. That I wanted to do a thing where I wasn't the main guy, it wasn't my name, and it was with other singers and songwriters. And so the original thing was me and Bob Palander and Jonah Goslin and Jennifer Lee and Rodney. And we had another name before that. I even have a picture, a promotional picture with the name. We were called the Avalons before that.
I remember that.
And for some reason, we didn't, I think somebody sued us or something. They said there was another Avalons band or something. And so we had to come up with a name real quickly because we'd already recorded. I think we were halfway done with the album. And I came up with that, and that's just it's from some Bob Dylan lyric. And I thought,
Or it's a street you used to live near.
Avalon.
Yeah,
No,
right.
no, Ghost
Yeah.
Poets. Is,
Oh,
is from-
Ghost Poets.
Ghost
Oh,
Poets is
okay.
from, and I thought, well, that's kind of cool. I mean, if I was flipping through the CD bin, if there were still CD bins, I would, and I saw something called the Ghost Poets, I would go, oh, I wonder what those guys are about, So that was a way to ease back into it. And, we did some cover tunes, we did some Jonas tunes, some of mine and Bob's. And it was a fun project.
So what drives you to keep, and I don't know this for a fact, but there's no doubt you're working on another record right now.
I am, but I got to tell you, I got into a real good role there for about 12 years, and it was one record a year, and it was like do the record, mix it, go. It's like giving birth. It really is. It's just like, okay, the baby's born. It seemed to have lived. What's next? And I would take about a month off, and then I would start again. And there would always be songs left over from the other album, whether they weren't good enough or they didn't fit with the other album, or other songs you were working on with yourself or with other people. And so I was churning out about one a year, and I was having fun. It was good. And I mean, I love the people I play with and work with them. And for me, it was just fun to do. And then, I don't know, a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I had a health thing where I had to have a quadruple bypass. And long story short, I rarely touched a guitar for a year. I mean, it was sitting in my room that I hang out, my den at home, and there's like 3 guitars sitting there. And, it's 10 feet away, and I'd look at it and I go, well, yeah, I should pick that up. I should play a little. I should try to write. And it'd be like, I don't want to. For whatever reason, I just didn't want to do it. I mean, we did a couple shows and things over those years, and that was fun. I go, well, the shows have been fun. Why not the other part? And I don't have any reason for it. I don't know why it wasn't. But, I mean, it was almost an entire year of not even thinking about writing a song. And then when I started to say, well, I got to do this. This is what I do. I don't do much else. I do this. It's been hard to get back into it. It hasn't been so hard to start. It's been hard to finish. I have more than enough for a new album, but it's just they're not finished. They're not real songs yet. And what that means to me is most of them don't have lyrics. And that's the most important part to me. And the other thing is that I think I've run out of things to talk about. That's the feeling I get. It's like I start something and I go, well, you pretty much did that. You said that already. Or you look down at that and this and that. So the whole thing is trying to find something worthy of your time as listeners that I can write about, And, I got some things in the works, but, I would say there'll probably be an album next year,
I'm looking for it. So what's important to you now?
My friend.
Besides waking up every morning.
Yeah. Staying out of intensive care is really a big priority. No, it's I'm I'm blessed. I mean, really, I really am blessed. I have a great family. I've got a great wife. I've got wonderful friends. I play music with people I really dig, and I dig them as people, and I dig the way they play. I have a job that is the most untaxing job in the history of the world. Don't let anyone ever tell you that a disc jockey's job is a hard job. It's
It was when you had to get up at 4 in the morning. I'll tell you.
yeah,
that
if you're
part. When I was
if you're a
doing that.
morning guy, yeah, it's hard work, or you work on a sports station. But
Right.
you know, if you're playing Pink Floyd and Zeppelin all day, it's not exactly a taxing thing, you know. People say, what's the hardest part of your job? I said, it's 2, staying awake and not swearing. I know those are the only 2 things that are hard. And it's 4 hours a day. It's a part-time gig for the most part.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm blessed. I mean, I feel good physically, which is, you know, once you go towards the dark side on that, it's really, you realize that it's really nice to feel good. And I have no plan. I didn't plan any of this. I didn't plan to be in a band as a vocation. I didn't plan to be on television for 10 years. I didn't plan to be on radio for 30 years.
30 years?
30 years.
Seriously?
Over 30 years. 32 years.
Wow.
I did not plan to be doing shows at 71, almost 72 years old. We played last night, just down the street, and you know, that's all. I feel like I'm playing with house money, doing that stuff, and the fact that people still come out to the shows or buy the CDs or whatever, it's amazing to me. I mean, obviously, it's not as big a group as we used to get together at Blossom. You know, there were a few more friends surrounding the whole thing then, but that's not important. Yeah, we keep the quality ones here, so you know. And those days are, you know, those days are great. I mean, and people, I think goes back to a question was earlier on about those shows, like the Blossom shows, or the Coliseum shows, or the Front Row shows. And people say, like, what was your favorite show, you know, or what? I got to be honest with you. I think most of the guys in the band would, and maybe in any band, I couldn't tell you very much about any of the Blossom shows or any of the Coliseum shows in terms of, well, we were really good this night, or we were mediocre this night, or we were horrible this night. I could probably tell you about what went on in the dressing room, you know, and I don't mean that from a Rolling Stones debauchery things. I mean, the gigs are the gigs, and you play the songs the best you can at the moment you're on stage, and you try your hardest. And there's a few nights I could say, well, God, yeah, if you'd have been in Omaha in November of 1986, you would have heard the best version of Lover ever, you know? But I don't remember that. It's not, you know, I just know that some nights I have a lot of fun playing it. Where are you going, buddy? Okay. He goes, I've heard this shit before.
It obviously didn't resonate.
So I remember more of the bus rides than I remember the gigs.
It's always about the hang.
Yeah, it is. It's about hanging with the people, and
Yeah.
and it's like it's the old saying, and it's, you know, it's a cliche. It's like, you know, you do the gigs for free, they pay you for everything else. They pay you for the bus rides, they pay you for the hotels, they pay you for the, you know, hanging around the lobby waiting for the cab to come over. They pay you for the sound checks. The gigs, you do those. You don't want any money for that. That's fun. You do those. But it's the other stuff that takes you away from your family and your friends and all that sort of thing. But here we are. We're still doing all this stuff.
I know it.
I mean, he just flew in from a gig with the band he's managing from Vegas last night to do this for you guys here. You know, I would not have flown in from Vegas to do this for you guys.
A little Vegas goes a long way.
Yeah.
I did have dinner last night with Suzanne Summers.
I did not. I had it with Mark Lee Shannon and Tommy Dobeck.
Well, there you go.
You win.
Yeah. It was her 73rd birthday, and she told me that during the afternoon she had posed nude for Instagram.
I saw it.
Did you?
I did see it.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's one of those cheaty nude pictures, though. You
Oh,
know?
really?
But that someone you asked before. Someone asked about like Merv Griffin. Like, what was it like? Anybody in the band will tell you their answer will be exactly the same. I don't even have to prep. They'll go, what was the coolest thing about Merv Griffin? They'll say, Susan Anton.
Right.
Who was a huge star for whatever reason. I have no idea at the time. But she was this gorgeous girl who was and she was on the show. And so we got to sit in the green room with Susan Anton. The hell with Merv, who cares, you know? He's a Susan Anton.
Well, I'm really glad you're still doing it. I enjoy the stuff you're doing. I think the last 4 or 5 albums top anything you've ever done.
Thank you.
And I've told you that.
Yeah.
And I didn't get paid to say that. And I don't get to see as many shows as I used to because I'm never here. But I hope you keep it up as long as Tommy wants to do it.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's funny because Tommy and Bob and I were riding back from a show in Canton a couple weeks ago. And I was, we were talking and I said, that was a really good show tonight. We played really well. And we're not the kind of people that stroke each other a whole lot. I mean, if it's like, we're just more, we're pretty honest about it, like, well, that really sucked tonight. That was, that was, what were you doing in that song? And what was I thinking? And and it was like, the question was like, God, if we ever rehearsed or we played more, we would be deadly, And then we all came to the conclusion that it was, hey, the fact that we're just doing this and having fun and doing it with people we liked at this age, I mean, that's all about. But then we went back and we said, this whole year, the shows that we've done, I don't know how many there have been, but they've been really, really good. And I don't know if anybody in the audience felt they were good. That's something else entirely, because it's the old running joke with your sound guy. Like when he comes back after a show and he goes, "What did you think?" I said, "I thought we played great tonight." He goes, "Well, it sounded like shit out front." And the next night he'll come back and he'll say, "What?" I go, God, it was horrible on stage." He goes, "Oh, it was great out there. It was just great." It's like, who knows? I mean,
what do you think when you see all these pictures?
I think I wish I had some of those guitars back. But who are those young guys? And that's, that's one of the most bizarre things about having some sort of notoriety. And I can thank Joe and Stacy and a few other people for this. That you keep getting come face to face with your old face. You know what I mean? It's like you were, oh my God, that's 50 years ago, And why would anyone let me go out of the house in that shirt? That sort of thing. It's all these things. But at the same time, like I said, we're here to look at it, so that's good. That's a good thing. But it's been for me, it's been an amazing journey. And people say, well, all the things like, oh, we just set the attendance records. We didn't set the attendance records. There was 7 or 8 of us, and we had to be there every night. You know what I mean? We were the same amount. It's you guys that set those records, not us. It was, we were gonna be there. So we had nothing to do with it that way. But the fact that I probably know half of you here. If not by name, at least to know that you show up to a lot of things, and that's a cool thing, because it started out with everybody was a stranger, and this time 45 years later.
When we started, I was more famous.
You were.
That's right.
You were definitely more famous. Had a nicer car? No. Yeah, but.
No, probably not.
No.
An old T-Bird or something. Hey, thanks. Thanks
you,
for the
buddy.
music.
Thank you.
Thanks for your friendship. You
Anybody?
guys have any questions? No?
I got one.
Oh, okay. Thought we
A
got
lot
it.
of really fine stuff's been remastered. How do you feel about the way it sounds now compared to when you actually recorded it? Do you like the remastered stuff better? Is that what you heard when you recorded it? Or like,
Well, remastering is just like anything else. You know, it's like pizza. You can make a good one or you can make a bad one. I mean, if you when they started to go over to CDs, when everything started, you know, the CDs came out and they started putting things onto CD, old albums. The very first one was Simon and Garfunkel's Greatest Hits. It is the worst sounding thing you've ever heard in your life, and it's kind of hard to screw up a Simon and Garfunkel record. They were good sounding records and stuff, but whatever, they didn't know how to do it, you know, and it's just a horrible musical experience that sold probably 4 million copies, you know. But vinyl sounded better than CDs, but I'm not going to go down the Neil Young road where everything that's digital, it sucks. I mean, that's the way it is right now. That's the way it's been for a long time. And if you know how to deal with it, the last step in the recording process before the CD gets manufactured is mastering. And you're talking about remastering. Well, that's just mastering something that was recorded a long time ago and already mastered. There are walls and walls of equipment in mastering studios now that their total job of these machines is to do nothing but make it sound shittier. To make it, and not shitty from this is a horrible sounding thing, to make it sound less pristine, to put a little distortion on everything, which is what vinyl did and how they mastered back then. It's not that you're going to hear something's distorted. You're going to say it's warmer. It feels a little friendlier. It's not quite as cold. And, you know, those machines didn't exist. The digital stuff came and they go, oh, now we got to make machines to make it not sound digital. But we can't go back, you know, to doing vinyl, although now the kids think vinyl is hip, you know. But, I mean, my oldest granddaughter, who's 24 now, 25, I can remember her standing in my living room staring at my record player, and she was mesmerized like it was the thing from 2001, you know? And I was just like, Grandpa, what is this? What is this strange machine you have in your house that just goes in circles like this, you know? But you can screw it up, you can save a record in mastering and you can screw it up in mastering. It all depends who does it, you know?
But I guess my question was like, because when you walk out of a recording studio with your best effort, is that any better than like the remastered? Like, do they actually improve on it?
They could, but that's very subjective.
It's someone else's interpretation of your song, I guess.
Yeah, but most of the time you have involvement in that. Trust me, when our good friend Bill Simzik remastered all the Eagles stuff, trust me, it didn't go out until Don Henley said, okay, you know what I mean? And Glenn Frey. It wasn't going anywhere, no matter what Bill did to it. But and if you're doing something like that, you know what remastering really is? It's just to make things louder. The whole goal of things now, and you talk to any guy that runs a mastering studio or mixes records, is you don't want your record when it comes, you know, if the Justin Bieber record is here and your record comes on, you don't want the volume to go to here and then come back up for Katy Perry or whoever, Foo Fighters, doesn't matter what the format is. And the subtlety's being lost. You know, you couldn't have an album like Asia by Steely Dan today. There's so much subtlety in that stuff, you know, that everything now has to be cranked up to here, you know. Even though it's not intense, you know, the music may not be intense. It still has to be this loudness thing. And that's what, when it says remastered, that just basically means it's going to be louder than what your other copy was. So if that's worth another $15 to you, then go for it. Or turn your old one up louder, you know.
You were talking about the Eagles. I was working with Eagles at the time when we were doing the remastering of all the albums. This turned into one of my projects with Bill Simzik. And he didn't have anything to do with the first two records. He didn't produce those. And half of the third. He came in the middle of On the Border, I think it was, right?
Yep.
And so I was with him in New York, and we're listening to the tape, the album would Take It Easy and all that. And we're listening to the tapes, and then he wanted to hear what the CD sounded like. Well, he found out that when they made that CD, which was another one of the early CDs that was made, it was about, I don't know, 5-6 RPMs faster.
Yeah.
And the album was like, take it easy. And we're listening to the real tapes, and he goes, take it easy. It's like, nobody bothered to check when they first made CDs. They just, here it is. Oh,
There's a radio station in town, won't say which one it is, but if you put the records that they play, if you record them and put them up against the record, it's not the same. They play them faster. They play them faster so you'll think it's a little more exciting. They play it faster so they can get one more commercial in an hour. It's all, but these things have gone on forever. I mean, and a lot of, it's like if you're a musician and you're trying to learn a song, and you sit with your acoustic guitar, and you play the thing, and you try to figure first out what keys it in, so you can do it. And then all of a sudden you realize it's not in any key. It's between keys, and you're going like, who would make a record, but how do you do that? It's got a piano on it. A piano cannot play between keys. You could tune a guitar that way, but you can't do a piano. And you just realize somebody mastered it, willingly or unwillingly, at a different speed. And it's now A sharp plus minus, instead of whatever. And it's crazy. Or the great story is, radio would never play any record over 4 minutes, singles. And 4 was pushing it.
So you wrote 354 on it.
So Phil Spector wrote 355 on the label of You Lost That Lovin' Feelin', which is like 442. They played it. They couldn't figure out why they weren't hitting the top of the hour, with their time. But hey, it says it's 350 on there, Okay, but we'll play it. So.
Anybody else have a question? Sure.
What song are you most proud of, and which one were you referring to when you said nobody can make me play this song again?
I lost the interest in Rosewood for a couple of years, and I didn't play it, but I got it back. When you're doing songs this long, first of all, it's a wonderful problem to have, that you want to hear, somebody wants to hear the songs, You might be sick of them, but hey, that's the whole job. My job, the band's job, is to make the song remain interesting to us. Change it just a little bit, maybe, so that so we can be a little bit interested in it, but not enough so you go, what'd they do? I mean, I've told this story before. Joe Walsh had always said, he played on the original Rosewood Bitters, and he always told me he was going to record it. And he never did, and every time I'd see him, I go, Joe, when are you going to record this song? I need the money, man. When are you going to record this song? Yeah, I know. So with the band, I remember we were going to do, we said, God, I wonder how Joe would do this. So we figured he would do it like Rocky Mountain Way, like a shuffle, So we worked it up as a shuffle. And we introduced it this way, and we played it at Blossom. And we played it, and we all think, this is really cool. And we got done, and I swear to God, there is dead silence at Blossom. It was like, well, we have crossed over the line here. We have infuriated the natives at this point, But
have you gone to a Bob Dylan show?
Oh, I know. I was never a big fan of Strike Up the Band. I was a big fan of what it did for us in terms of the show. It ended the show for 20 years, long after Jonah left the band and stuff. And it had a purpose, and people liked it, but nobody in the band liked it, And when it came, if you'll notice, I up until a few years ago, and in a totally different version, I never sang that song. Even when Jonah left, it was like I had no interest in singing that song whatsoever. So Bob got to have his moment in the sun. He got to sing it, But we were we were driving home once again, that's Tom and Bob and I a couple weeks ago, and I'm thinking, we should pull out something old, a couple older things for the holiday shows that we haven't done in a long time. Yeah. Something that people will like to hear. And Tommy mentioned something, and I mentioned something, and then I said, what do you think about doing Strike Up the Band? And Bob just, he goes, why would you say that? I go, what do you mean? He goes, why in the world would you say that? He goes, we don't want to do that song. I go, I'm just throwing it out there, dude. I'm not saying like, and he got silent for a while, and then we were driving, everybody's driving, and he, why would you say that? Why would you even say that?
So you're going to close with it?
Yeah, we're going to do it. Just to piss Bob off.
Right. Someone had a question over. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Michael, you did say you felt you were blessed, and you have blessed us here in Cleveland.
Thank you.
One of the greatest gifts that God has given us is music.
True.
And one thing you've given to Cleveland is bragging rights. And, we're so grateful, because you're the best. And just to mention your name to somebody, different ages, starts a conversation.
Usually with the word who.
Did anyone mention it? I mention your name and it starts conversations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's very interesting to stand on our stage, you might agree, hopefully, these days, and look at the audience, because there's the people that you would think would be there, and some people some you don't, but at least age-wise, there's people that you expect to see, and then there's people where you're going, what in the world are they doing here? Yeah, I mean, you don't figure their parents forced them to, or just indoctrinated them so hard, but it's a really neat feeling, because you'll see someone my age or someone your age singing along to the songs, and then you'll see some 19-year-old kid there singing along to the songs, and if you know the words, then you're sort of invested in it.
You're kind of like the Dick Clark of. I'm sorry, but.
You play New Year's Eve.
Our accountants would disagree with you tremendously. Well, I agree. I did not. Who thought we'd be doing this long? I mean.
Thank God you are. And.
Well, I'd be loose on the streets, and God knows what would happen.
On your street.
On my street,
You
yeah.
have your own street now. That's pretty cool.
And you're using it, and that's the right thing to do.
I agree.
I'll tell you a funny story about this. I work with a band now called Bad Company. And I'm in London about 6-7 months ago at a meeting. We're putting together these new box sets and all this. And this guy is a very English guy, and he looks at me and goes, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "Michael Stanley." I said, "What?" He goes, "Why can't we get those records over here anymore?" And I'm like, "Are you serious? This is the head of production for Warner Brothers Records in the UK."
He can
So,
get him. He just has to.
I just thought, and that's all he wanted to talk to me about was Michael Stanley Band. And it was very cool.
Yeah, you mentioned, somebody mentioned the street thing. And that's one of those things, like you don't put on your list of things you want to accomplish in your life. I want to get up, I want to go to college, I want to get married, I want to have a street named after me,
But is it Lane? Is it Michael Stanley Lane?
Way.
Ooh, like Blue
Get
Jay
with
Way.
it.
Yeah, pretty cool.
But I'm standing, but the street happens to be on, I happen to work on that street. Where I work, the radio station is on that street. So I'm out there the other day on the street talking with somebody, and they go in, and I'm just standing there waiting, so I do, enjoying the weather until I have to go inside. And some guy walks by, and he does a double take, and he says, "Michael Stanley." I said, "Yeah, how you doing?" He goes, "Wow, nice to meet you, I'm a fan." And he says, and then he goes,
wait a minute.
This is your street. And I said, why, yes, it is.
And I have to clean it
And he
every
said-
day.
Well,
right?
he said, that's so cool. I go, you think it's cool, but you haven't thought this through at all. I said, oh, sure, they gave you the street. I said, but do you know why I'm standing out here? He goes, no. I go, he goes, I have to make sure that this street is clean. I said, I have to do 3 to 4 hours a day just on street maintenance. And I said, now I do get to write parking tickets, so that's kind of cool. I said, but this guy believed the whole thing. It was like,
You had a question over there.
But I didn't get to my question.
Oh, there was a question too. Okay.
this is a double album, right?
Right, yeah.
You remember the bus stories and all that? Maybe there's a,
Yeah, maybe.
maybe there's a book.
Maybe there is, but you aren't going to read it. No, you know, people, they say that thing, and it's like, the good stories I'm not going to tell you. Let's be honest, I'm just not going to tell you the good stories. Well, no, the jail, I'm not going to tell you and I'm amazed at some of the banned books that you do read, and you go, I can't believe they told that story, but that's what you want to read, I know that. No. I've started it a few times.
Okay.
And stopped it every time from lack of interest on my part. There have been people here that have come to me and said, we want to do this, we want to publish it. And it's like, why? I'd rather spend the time writing songs than doing that.
Okay, and I recently saw you on Houlihan and Big Chuck.
This is 5 questions now. Houlihan and Big Chuck, yep. Did that one time.
You're
Worked with those guys for 20 years, did it once. And I swear to God, I've never had more feedback from anything I've ever did in my life than Big Chuck and Little John.
One of your daughters sent me a book called Finding Michael Stanley.
I know. I saw that.
It was pretty bizarre book.
Okay, it was like it was made on a mimeograph machine. You know? It was like,
Yeah, it kind of smelled that.
Yeah, like,
right.
weird.
Go ahead.
I have 2 questions. They're hopefully both not too long, but one is the song that took you the shortest amount of time to write, and the one that took you the longest time to write. It's just a curiosity thing, if you know.
I can tell you the one that took me the longest was this, and once again, it took me like 7 years,
Oh, wow.
and nobody cares about it one way or the other, that type of thing. It was a song called Like Father, Like Son, and I don't remember. I think it was on the American Road album. I'm not sure which album it was on. Yeah, thank you. I have my own fact checker. You have Google, I have Dave. Shortest?
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but there were a couple, and that's the thing when you go like, well, this songwriting thing's pretty damn easy, isn't it? It was. My Town was not hard. My Town was pretty quick. Yeah, once the decision was made, what to write about, it was pretty quick. Now it also doesn't have a whole lot of lyrics. Usually I'm kind of a wordy bastard, so that was, not a hard one.
And then the second question had to do with, right now it's Michael Stanley and the Resonators have been doing this for 20-some years. The question I get a lot, because I go to a lot of the shows and whatever, so people always ask me why you didn't stick with Michael Stanley Band when you, I guess the reason I'm asking is because a lot of bands today have one member in them and they still call themselves that band, and it's like one original member and everybody else is new. And you have a lot of lead singers that have been replaced in bands over the years and whatever, they still call themselves whatever that band is. You are...
Foreigner, perhaps?
Yeah, Foreigner's one of them, and I go see them a lot, but if people don't get it or they don't...
They just went out with no one in the band.
Yeah. Foreigner has
No one.
Jones is in it.
No.
No,
He comes out.
every once in a while.
He'll come and introduce the band.
So that's basically a tribute band.
Right. So
Yeah.
what I guess my point is that, and I know that, and I understand it, and there's a lot of them out there. Since the band was your band, it was your name, and I know that some of the players have changed over the years. Why did you choose to, and I know you had your finale and all that years ago, but when you came back and decided to start again, why not stick with Michael Stanley Band, since the name was already so familiar, and you're playing a lot of the same music.
If you stop, I'll answer. I know you like to talk, Michelle, but
Sorry.
because No reason to be sorry. MSB was what it was, and it was a certain thing. It was a certain amount of people. It was a certain bunch. You got to remember, even within MSB though, it's like there was the original band, then there was the Gary and Giz band, then there was the Danny Ricky band. You know, it was basically three different versions. You know, and the version that was the most successful was probably the middle one. In terms, that's the one that did all the sold out shows and stuff. That's the one people remember the most. But that was then, and it to me, it just put the guys that aren't still playing with me from that band, that was their thing too, and they should get the credit for what they did there. We're not doing. I didn't want to be a tribute band. I wouldn't do as many of the old songs as we do now if I didn't have to. I mean, a lot of them I still like to play, but at the same time, I would probably be more 50-50 in terms of newer things in that. And I wanted the freedom to do whatever I wanted to do from that. I didn't want it to be locked into all Michael Stanley Band things. In other words, if we kept doing that, unless we put out new records, albums, whatever, that would be the song pool to pull from, and I wanted to add to that song pool. I'm not denigrating that song pool. There are songs I wrote back then that are some of the best things I've ever written, and I might say like, well, you know, I think I'm writing better than ever as a whole, but at the same time, you know, there's things back then. It's like, well, you know, I don't know if I'll ever write something that's as good as that again, but I'll try. You know.
Go ahead.
I was hoping you would finish the second part of her question over there. She asked about what song were you that you wish you would never play again, and then what is the song that you wrote that, how was it that you was most proud of that you think is one of your, there's probably not just a single one, but.
No, that's I mean, I know people want an easy answer to that, and it would, I'm not copping out to, it changes. It really does for me. I mean, there's probably 10 or so that it changes from, but someday if somebody asks me the question and I'm feeling in a rockin' mood today, then I'll go with something that's up, or if I'm, you know, feeling another way, I'll say that. Or, the other thing is that some of them are, I can't separate the song from the recording. And I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but like I think we do Lover so much better in the last 20 years than we did it back then, you know. But the song, the power of the song was from back then. But if you listen to, if you go back and you play the Heartland album, that song is really fast. And so is a song like Spanish Nights, you know. And we do them much slower now. And a lot of people go, well, you do them slower because you're older. And I go, well, really, we do them slower because we did them too damn fast back then. I mean, there's some things, I talked about pulling out old songs from, somebody threw out a song from Heartland, I forget what it was. Yeah, there it was. And I went back and I listened to it and I go, even if in 100% of my being wanted to do this song, I couldn't do it. I couldn't play that fast. I don't know how we played that fast. I don't know why we played that fast. Because usually fast equals, you know, energy. And if you're playing fast, people think you're energetic, you know. And if you're playing slow, they think you're depressing, you know. Sometimes these things are true, but, you know, to give you just a few, you know, from the old days, Spanish Nights, Lover, Somewhere in the Night, things like that. No, that was not one of my favorites. No, not that I don't like it, and I like it because it got Bob and I off the songwriting pad. I like things about it, and I wish Celine Dion would have covered it, but no, it's not something that, you know, if we never play that, we brought that out about in the last year. We hadn't done that song in 10, maybe more years. We brought it out, And everybody in the bands, but I think especially some of the guys that hadn't played it before, like, got into doing it. And the audience really seemed to like it. But after doing it for 2 shows, I was just totally over it. It was like, you know, I'm not getting anything out of this. Not if the crowd had gone just totally crazy, it's like, okay, you want to hear it? We'll play it. And I'll give you my best that I can. But it wasn't, if it was a question of this and something else was going to win. Because there's only so many songs left. There's only so many shows left. We don't know the number. I tell this to the band all the time, and they're not all young kids either, but they, we're looking at finite amounts of things now. Before it was endless. It was endless shows, endless albums, endless songs, endless everything. Because when you're young, that's what you do. You all did it in your own fashion. But now it's finite, so.
The MSB stuff, especially like the height in the 80s, like a lot of the writing was really like mainstream or what like some would call AOR. And the stuff you're doing and the stuff you've been doing with the Resonators is more, I call it singer-songwriter, but like not as mainstream or AOR. What do you attribute that evolution to?
Age. I mean, I'm not trying to be flippant. And back then it was I'm not writing for anybody but me at this point. Or you want it and you go, I hope they like this song when you do something new. I know certain songs where, Tommy will come over to play on the song and we'll get done and he'll go, MSB song. It's like, yeah, that would have fit on any MSB album. And that will be the one that initially probably most fans will react to and go, I like that. Why do I like that? Well, I like it because it sounds like it could have been on Heartland, or something like that. And the other ones are different. We'll sometimes stand back and we'll go like, nobody's going to like that but us. Absolutely no one. But you got to do some of those sometimes. But back then, too, it was the thing of you had to have a single. We were always thinking, that's all you were thinking as a band back then. You're thinking singles, unless you had Stairway to Heaven, some 7-minute thing that they were going to play on AOR. You better have a single or you were over.
Over here.
Do you remember where you got the idea for the song Voodoo?
Yes, I do. It's funny.
Can you tell us?
Yeah. No, I can't. We have a good friend named Joe Vitale who played drums on some of my solo albums, played drums with Joe Walsh for years, with Crosby, Stills, Nash for years, all sorts of people for years. He's a great guy, but for some reason, and he's one of the funniest guys on the face of the earth, you'd ask him like a question, you'd say, Joe, what's up? And he'd go, voodoo. But the way he said it, you just started laughing, It was just like, and he would say, and he'd go like, Joey, say it, voodoo. I needed a song title. I'd been with him the day before or something. He said it. It was like, okay, it's voodoo. Then it's just you know what it is then? It's a puzzle. This song's gonna be called Voodoo. Well, what the hell's that about? Why do I write about that? Do I write some like really cryptic thing like they're killing cats and dripping blood on people and thing, or we just do something whatever? But songwriting is very much a puzzle. If you like puzzles, you'll like songwriting. It's a musical crossword.
Where do you rank Midwest Midnight? Would you rank it in your top 5 or 10?
No, I would. Thank you. But you know what? I like that song, and I've never gotten tired of playing it. But the guy who wrote that song, and that's the only song that's ever been credited on the credits. The writer's credit says Michael Stanley and Michael Gee. And that's because I figured the Gee guy, he lived all that first, and then Stanley wrote about it. But it's a pretty perceptive song about the music business. But at that point, I'd been in the music business for like 15 minutes. And it's like, and all this shit came true. And it was kind of like, how did I know that? Why? And it wasn't good to know it. I mean, it was like, it didn't help you or anything. But it was very weird. It was like you really didn't go through as much of that as it seems you did until later on, until 20 years later. But I've always liked playing that song, and I still think it's pretty true.
Except for the record guy playing the great English band that they found, which wasn't an English
It
band.
wasn't an English band.
Right, it was
like-
Boston.
No, it wasn't Boston.
No?
It was the same trip, though. David and I went up to New York to see Steve Popovich, who had signed us to Epic Records, and we were talking about something, a new album, this or that. And Steve, I don't know if you know Steve, one of the greatest guys in the world, one of the greatest record men. But he said, sit down, I gotta play you something. You're not gonna believe this. And Steve listened to things at stadium level volumes in his office. I mean, just painful. But he puts it on, and it's More Than a Feeling by Boston.
Yeah.
And it was just like, well, that's one of the best singles I ever heard in my life, I think. I'm not sure. But then he played us some other band that was like a German band or a Hungarian metal band or some bullshit thing that nobody ever heard of. And that's what it was. But whatever the country was didn't sing well, so it had to become English band.
I can still hear the Boston.
Oh, yeah.
That was pretty cool, though.
Yeah. I have the test pressing of that thing that that's one of those moments though that you knew right then. You knew, you know what? Everyone is going to like this record. This is about as a perfect single as you could possibly get, sonically, musically, the whole thing. It's just,
But the point of that was we went up there to play him new music. And it's like, yeah, your music. Wait, you hear this?
I hear this. It's like, oh,
It's
listen
like,
to our
hey,
stuff.
thanks. And that's when he decided, let's do the live album.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know a lot of folks kind of don't realize that MSB, your fan base, you have obviously the big fan base in here in Cleveland, you have a big fan base in St. Louis, and you also have a presence out on the West Coast too, correct? Can you kind of talk about how that, because I lived in San Francisco for many years, and I hear like MSB music on Muzak. And can you kind of talk about how, like on the West Coast, your presence out there happened?
If I knew how they really happened, Janet, I'd have made it happen more. I mean, I'm not being flip. It's like think of this: how huge we were in Cleveland. We couldn't get arrested in Columbus. We didn't do big shows in Columbus. We played clubs. And, not that often. We didn't mean anything in Cincinnati, Obviously, Pittsburgh was out of the question because that was the whole Cleveland-Pittsburgh thing. That was not going to happen, And why St. Louis? I'm no connection to St. Louis, But all of a sudden, like I said, it was the first market to ever play Rosewood Bitters.
Yeah, KG.
Before Cleveland did. And the West Coast couldn't explain it, except for the fact that obviously there was radio support at the time, And we were pretty good. We did pretty well in both San Francisco and Los Angeles. But there's no reason. It wasn't like we played out there. Even when we were touring a lot, you maybe got out there twice a year, maybe, Where if you back here, I don't know if you know, you probably do. Columbus is one of the major test markets for every product in the world, because over half the population of the United States lives within 500 miles of Columbus, Ohio. Now, if you're a band, you want to set up here. You're within, 500 miles. That's not shit. We would drive that at a drop of a hat, And you're within half the population of the United States. You're going to work that. You're not going to worry about the West Coast or that sort of thing. But it was radio then. It was a different game, And there were still a lot of tiers of clubs and different sized venues to grow your audience.
Well, I think one time I remember you and I talking and you telling me that whoever was setting up your tours at that time, that they mainly dealt with the West Coast bands and you were able to get on like some of the opening acts?
Well, yeah, once again, that's always for a while, when we first started out, we were with a booking agent out of Detroit. So we played a lot with Nugent. We played a lot with Seeger. We played a lot with
Aerosmith was booked out.
Aerosmith,
Yeah.
and whoever that's the way booking agents work. Then we got with they were called Monterey Peninsula artists, and they were all Doobie Brothers, Kenny Loggins, Toto, that whole thing. Yacht rock at its finest. I don't say that disparagingly, but so yeah, we did tons of Doobie Brothers tours and tons of those, and they were good. They were a good mix for us, though. It was also a good mix. Our crowd liked them, their crowd liked us. It wasn't a painful thing, because I've been on painful tours and it's painful.
Can I ask another question? You talked one time, I think in an interview that I heard, about Howard Stern had spent like a half hour of his radio program talking about trying to figure out, discussing and debating what Rosewood Bitters was.
Yeah.
Had you ever, just out of just kind of being comical or something, kind of maybe thought about doing a contest or something and seeing what people wrote in regards to what they thought Rosewood Bitters were?
No. when Joe Walsh finally recorded Rosewood Bitters on, I think there was the Confessor album.
Yep.
And he was going out on the road, and it's the only time Joe has ever called me at home in my entire life, and I've known him for 50 years. He called, he said, Michael, I said, what? I'm going out on the road, I'm going to have to do a lot of interviews. What the hell is a Rosewood Bitter? I said, it's your song now, Joe. You can say whatever you want to say. You say whatever story works for you, But I really, I've said this a million times too, so. I stopped explaining songs. I used to, I think that'd be so cool. Somebody'd say, what did you mean by this? And I'd give you my thesis on why I wrote this song. And when you got done, 9 times out of 10, they're looking at you, and you can just see either they don't understand a thing you said, or they are so disappointed. And you go, and they go, really? And I go, like, well, what did you think it meant? And they tell you what they thought it meant, which is totally, completely different than what you thought. But at times you go like, well, that's actually better than what I meant, you know what I mean? I see how you got there from that, but no, it wasn't. So it's like, if the song works for you, Merry Christmas, go with it,
And Joe had his own lyrics.
Yeah, Joe changed the lyrics anyway, it doesn't matter.
Because he didn't know.
Which is illegal, I might add. But
the lawsuit
I took the money. I took the money.
Right. Anybody else? Sure.
I have a question. I just want to say thank you for everything you've done.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Did you really get old too soon, smart too late?
Yes, I did. I don't know about the smart part, though. You think you did, and then all of a sudden you go, well, maybe I'm not quite as smart as I thought.
Who's the coolest person you played with over the years?
The coolest?
In person and in that, they were just the coolest.
Clarence Clemens was pretty cool. Of course, he was going to tell Clarence he's not cool, so that sort of thing. It's a good question. Good question. B.B. King was pretty cool. Never played with him, but I met him a couple times.
Was there anybody that you met that you thought they weren't people?
All sorts of people. That's the old, and it's true. It's careful about your heroes or your icons or your, about wanting to meet them. There was a good friend of mine who worked in town here, Wendy Stanton, and for years she knew I was a big Springsteen fan, and for years she wanted to get me and Bruce together, and I said, I don't want to meet him. She said, why not? You're a big fan. You can talk. You can maybe write some songs together. I go, first of all, he's not going to write any songs. I said, second of all, I don't want to meet him. She goes, why? I said, I don't want to be bummed out. I said, I don't want to find out he's an asshole, because if he is, that's going to really mess up my musical thing with him. And I like my musical thing with him, and I don't want to mess it up. So she said, all right. then so one day he's playing the Coliseum. It was like, I think the Darkness 2 or something. And we were pretty well known then, so we used to come in the back way, and so we didn't have to go through the crowd and all that shit. And leave the same way. So I'm leaving after the show, and she goes, hold on, somebody, she goes, wait in that room over there. And she puts me in this room. And I realize I'm in a dressing room. I know what the dressing rooms are at the Coliseum.
Yeah.
It's a dressing room, and there's music in the background, and the showers go on, and it's like, what the hell am I doing in here, and whom? And then Bruce comes around the corner. And, it's like, he's kind of weirded out to see me, anybody, and I kind of weirded out to see him, and this is our meeting, And then Wendy comes back in and she introduces and stuff, and you could tell it's just two guys that weren't into this. But I just wanted to get out of there because I didn't want him to start talking, because I did not want him to be a jerk. I spent a little time with him later on, and he's not a jerk, which is good. But because I met too many people that were,
He opened shows for us.
He did.
Yeah.
No, we opened shows for him.
No.
Yes.
I have the thing.
I have the thing.
It says Michael Stanley, and underneath it says Bruce Springsteen.
No.
It was at Ashland College.
No. I could tell you exactly what it is.
Where was it?
It was at Kent State University in the field house. The opening band was the Numbers Band. We were second as a trio, and then Bruce was the headliner. It was right before the second album, Innocent Wild the Innocent. And we were down there, he did a 3-hour sound check. People didn't do 3-hour shows back then, not even him. He did a 3-hour sound check. And he was not well known at the time, nor were we. Probably the Numbers Band was more famous than any of us at that point. And it was something like $3 to get in, and nobody came. But we did the show, we played second, and we got in the car and we drove to another college and did a second show that night. That's what we did. I have this.
Remember that one? Okay.
Yeah, I know.
We did that a couple times.
Yeah.
What bad management.
Money.
Ugh.
I've always wondered, Subterranean Homesick Blues on your first album. Why?
Why not? It's a great song.
Of all the Dylan songs.
He wanted to do the video.
I liked it. No, I love that song.
Great song. I love your version.
And I stole the arrangement of it from another guy who was a friend of Bill Sims, a guy named Terry Boylan.
Really?
John Boylan's brother.
Yeah, I remember Terry.
And I just ripped his arrangement off completely. And because that's what you did back then. And I was, I was probably one song short of an album, or one song that anybody agreed should go on the album. It's like, well, what else can we do? Well, let's do this. People did it. Back then, it was not as strange to do cover versions and stuff.
It was the second album you ever made.
Yeah. Plus, it was a thing of, it gives as a new artist, which I was at that time, it gives a disc jockey something to latch onto. Like, I don't know what a Rosewood Bitters is, but I know what a Subterranean Homesick Blues is. Let's see what this guy does with Subterranean Homesick Blues. Now, it might kill you, but it also might get you in the door. And that's the truth.
Michael Stanley.
Thank you, sir.
I guess we figured it out. I guess we figured it out.
I think they want to keep us from talking. I don't think so. Thank you, folks. I really appreciate it. Enjoy your fall. See you at the next show somewhere.